should be live. There we go. So what I'll do is, after this, I'll upload the VOD straight to YouTube, so it's maintained, which I don't often do because I forget to do it. And if I stream for 4 hours, that's like a many gig file. So yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to do. I was going to grab the image for the diagram. That was in the development chat, wasn't it? You did that. Is this what? There you go. Your artwork.
Oh man, so pretty.
Just in case you need to reference them. No, not that one. Is that 2 copies of that one? No, that's different. Okay. Okay. Evening, Ancient Coder. How are you? So apparently Twitter won't let me tweet. I'm trying to do my go live notification and Twitter's like, nope, something went wrong. Not too bad. You can talk, by the way, Junicus, if you want to. Don't you can answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to use the push to talk because it started raining here. I didn't want to make
Gotcha.
noise.
Okay. So just gonna give this a few minutes warm up. My apologies for starting a little later than normal. Voting is important, so we did that tonight. I need to make sure that I'm jumping to the right Visual Studios. Oh. If it's actually okay. For the last couple of streams, the stream player in the dashboard has been broken, so I've not been able to see my actual stream. And it's decided it's going to work today, which is great. Yes. I mean, I know the content's not exactly upbeat, but I suppose it was like, what, almost 5 a.m. for you by the time we finished. Oh no, 4:30. Okay, so the goal of tonight's stream will be to, I think we're going to make this a Q&A kind of walkthrough of Junicus's basically microservice architecture, right? Distributed ordering system.
Yep.
And we're going to go. Yep. We're going to go through it and tinker with it, and hopefully it'll generate some questions, some thoughts, and so if you can think of questions, please ask. And I think I put a bot command in. Yeah, distributed ordering system using MassTransit is how I put it in there. So we have a tonight command. And okay. So if I'm clicked on you, so you should be able to move around, right, Junicus, and point things out, and it should follow you? Or is it just going to open code files? Is that how this works?
Let's try it.
Yeah, you should have full read write.
think you have to set me to follow. Let me see. I think I can actually.
Yeah, I'm toggled. Yeah. I don't know if it tracks whether you're expanding. I think it only tracks code files. I'm not sure if it tracks solution, like if you expand solution directories and stuff like that.
Well, we'll see. If not, I'll just mention the file and told you to navigate to it.
Yep. Yep. Can you hear Junicus okay, Ancient Coder? Puzzle? Clear enough? Well, sound okay. There we go. Hey, Mr. Anhorn. How are you? Cool. Did you get your computer all sorted out? Sufficiently upgraded? Thank you, Puzzle. I have to make a conscious effort not to say your real name. You don't, right? Much better than Google Meet Zoom. I'd hope so. 20 minutes of finding a non-standard screw? I've been spoiled. I've been buying cases that don't require many screws. I have an NZXT-H1 case, which is my gaming PC, and it has 4 screws in it, and that's just to remove the water cooler. Everything else is completely without screws. The M2. Okay, the silly little screws that keep the M2 in. Okay, I get you. Okay, well, looks like people are coming in. Twitter still won't let me tweet. Not really doing that right when it's your one job and you can't do it. Never mind. Yes, we have Junicus with us. We're going to walk through his ordering system. After Tuesday's stream, some of this might be actually familiar. And maybe we can answer some of the questions we had on Tuesday. And yeah, any questions you have, feel free. We'll make this kind of like we did with the project spotlight with Dota and the Docker walkthrough with you. The formats work pretty well so far, I think, and I'll just go ask intelligent questions at some point. So, yeah. Okay. So let's get started. I say we've got enough people here now, and again, the VOD will get uploaded to YouTube as quickly as I can after the stream. So, do you want to start with what are we trying to build here?
Yes, I think that's the best place to start. So basically, the whole project is it's to make money and lots of money, and we're gonna be doing that with a few services. Basically, with these whole COVID thing and the stay at home and basically companies that do services for like the food industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Restaurants and deliveries and stuff. People are starting to use third-party deliveries more than usual, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be at the site touching things, and you want to stay at home and get stuff delivered to you to keep yourself safe.
Yep.
So we the company that I work for, we deal with restaurants, right? And
Yep.
so we contracted a third party person to make a program, basically the same program that I'm making.
Right.
But I thought to myself, well, I can do that, and so I have other people that can actually sell it as a product. So why not do it?
Yep.
And so I came up with the idea. It's like, well, we need a few services, and we need a few clients, and basically that's what we're doing here.
Okay.
We have, uh, let's see, we can actually show some things here.
Yep.
We have a service. See if you can follow me if it changes for you.
Yeah, it's opened up Startup CSS. It's a Startup CS.
Awesome. So basically this is the main project. It's the orders API. Uh, what I thought is that eventually, not only can we get orders from those third parties, that would be the first thing that I want right now to implement. But
Right.
eventually, we could do a mobile client or a website, or there are a few options for where the orders are coming from.
Right.
And so I thought that maybe I should separate the orders API so that I can actually scale it up or scale it out depending on the load that we get. And it's going to be one of the main services because pretty much it's going to manage all the orders.
Right.
Uh, its job will be to take the order and distribute it to the clients at the store that will be doing the actual injection into the point of sale.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
And so this one has it's a basic API, and um, let's see, we have a controller, right, which is an order controller. That basically I'm using mediator, and
Right.
well, you've probably seen this because we've used it in the pet home
Yep.
project, basically.
Hmm.
And so we send a command. It's a post order command, and here I separated the each service has a different set of layers. There's an application layer and an infrastructure layer. The application layer is where all the commands are defined.
Right.
And so we have a process order command here
Okay.
that takes an store ID. Right now, this is part of the experimentation. I have this stored code.
Right.
I'm going to be using that code to determine which endpoint, which store to send the order to.
Right.
And this one is using MassTransit to uh, basically deliver a payload to the queue where each client is connected to. And
Okay.
this is kind of what we were doing on Tuesday.
Right.
Uh, I do it a slightly different. I have a factory client because I want to create the client depending on the order command,
Right.
right? Because I don't until I get the order, I don't know which store I should send it to. Uh,
Oh,
the
so
order,
you're using the acknowledgement there.
yes, and see
Gotcha.
here I gotta get response, so
Ah.
that way I can send. Right now I'm doing a test. Sorry. Uh, with the this message here, that's
Right.
just a test message, but eventually it's going to actually have the order. Uh,
Gotcha.
and so that it gets injected into the POS, and they can send me a response back, uh, making was it successful? Did it have issues with the items or uh, issues with the price or tax calculation,
Right.
things like that? And so uh, I can send that response back to the to whoever called the service.
So that's kind of interesting because I've not seen. So one of the things that I learned early on with working with Service Bus and talking about distributed systems was the sequencing of things is hard, right? And the ability to so doing that, you're basically making it like it's a web request, right? You're saying, okay, do this, and then get the response back from it.
Yes, but the thing is, see, I would have done like you say, like I'd have a web service running on the store.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that you have to be careful with the things you run at those servers
Right.
There's some compliance issues like PCI compliance and things like that, where
Yeah.
sometimes, depending on the store, you can't have those servers connected directly to the internet, right? So you want
Right.
services to be behind a firewall,
Yeah.
and so having to deal with opening a port and that kind of stuff, I didn't want to have to deal with that.
Gotcha.
Uh, and so the way we're doing it here is the service bus allows us to do a like inversion, like doing an inversion of control, but it's more
Right.
like an inversion of the service, right? So
Gotcha.
instead of the service contacting the store directly,
Mm-hmm.
the store is listening for events in a queue.
Gotcha.
And so when the service posts something on the queue, the store responds to it.
Right.
Uh, but the cool thing about it is that with this mass transit, the way they do it, I'm able to get a response in the queue,
Yes.
which I couldn't. I was trying before I got into the service bus thing. I was trying to do Signal R.
Right.
They have a way to do it, but when the message initiates from the hub,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot get a response back from the client that's connected to the hub, right?
Right.
If the message initiated from the client, you could get a response back from the hub because it's only just one hub responding. But
Yep.
I guess it's a design thing for them because when they do the hub side of things, they're basically broadcasting. Even if you try to send a command to a specific client using
Right.
their ID,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you're broadcasting it. So
Right.
they can't really get an answer from the client. And
Gotcha.
so this service bus really uh made it nice.
Hmm.
Uh there's another thing is I can actually there are quite a few things that you can set up with this client.
Right.
Uh, when you uh, let's see, where was it that I saw that? Let's try to do a client dot. See, there's I think it was here. I gotta that sorry, I would have to look at it
Yeah.
again.
No, that's
I think it's client factory actually that allows me to do a few configurations.
yeah.
Um,
Live share doesn't share that with us in the
yeah,
same
it
way,
doesn't
so
share.
we,
Yeah,
we get to see red text until you actually find the autocomplete.
yeah. I'm looking at the pop-up and not finding what I'm looking for, like
Yeah.
what I'm looking for. Well, anyways, but when you create I guess it's in the client side of things. When you create the hub, you can actually set up a few things like duration and the durability of the message and
Right.
some ways for it to handle it, right? And one of the things here is that I'm doing a timeout,
Yeah.
and that's so that if by any chance the store is not open, it's closed,
Right.
uh, and I send a message in the queue, I don't want it to stay there. Because I want to, depending on what service I have in the front that is actually doing the order request,
Yeah.
I need to acknowledge right away because there's going to be a guest waiting, a customer waiting
Yeah.
for a response, right? They want to know,
Yeah.
did my order get through? And so I have a timeout here. I
Mm-hmm.
started with 30 seconds, but uh, um, uh, I wanted to put the message on the queue, and if
Mm-hmm.
in 30 seconds the client doesn't respond, then I want to take it out and say, well, the order didn't go through, and so the service bus allows me to do some neat things in that regards.
Right. Yeah. Evening, Frank. Welcome. Okay, so in this case, obviously you're being super optimistic. Like there is no failure condition here, but so in this instance, what you do is handle this result. If you didn't get a response back, I assume that at some point it comes back and it's a no response, whatever. Will response
Right.
always be populated here?
Uh, um, yes and no. Right. So I'll get I'm guessing that I should probably wrap this in a try catch,
Okay.
and probably the timeout will be a an exception that the get response will throw. Well, I'm guessing. I haven't
Well, yeah.
actually looked at it that far, but I'm guessing that's how it works. And so I'll either get a success response
Right.
or or that I orders accepted thing, that interface that I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna make it so it's like a response, right? So there's a status response and there's an error message that's gonna
Right.
get filled if the status is an error, and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
So I do get a message back though, right? So if this response here is not the actual interface that I made, it's a response from Mass Transit.
Right.
So there are things in there too, like an actually response that there's a message that I can get back, and that's the actual uh, s- uh, the implementation of that
Yeah.
interface. And
It
I'm
creates a
guessing,
proxy object that fills it out.
yeah, yeah, I'm guessing there's gonna be other statuses in that response, but I haven't looked at it
Gotcha.
too far.
Okay.
So it might be a try catch, or it might be something in that response where it says that it's successful or not or whatever.
Right. But you're still getting the benefit of the distributed nature of mass transit here, because you can deal with more load. So if you start getting timeouts, you could actually, that could be a metric that tells you there's a problem. I need to scale out my services to be able to process these faster, right? So you're still getting the benefit. It's not like this is a point to point connection.
Yeah, no, with
Once you make the
the
request,
I'm guessing that eventually, if I see that I'm having issues with the timing,
Mhm.
I might scale out the RabbitMQ
Yeah,
into maybe a cluster or things like that,
yeah,
and add, that'll help probably process messages faster.
right,
And I, I I want to, one of the tests that I want to run. I'm
right.
sorry. All right. So thank you, Anshin. Uh, so one of the things that I want to try out is basically make again a fake client, right?
Right.
Uh, and maybe more than one client, and
Right.
take that order API and
Hmm.
really hammer it.
Yeah.
Uh, Send a bunch of orders and see how, like, see how it behaves, like one store,
Hmm.
one fake client, or maybe 20 fake clients, right?
Right.
And see how well it behaves, like if it gets if it slows down or
Yeah.
whatever.
This is one of the things I was talking about the other night, right? The difficulty in being able to test these things, how to scale up and how to verify the scale is going to work correctly. You understand all these scenarios. It's pretty hard. It's a lot of work just to deal with the how to test the scaling component.
Yeah, I mean, even if you know this stuff, it's gonna be hard because so many things can fail,
Hmm.
or or go right, eh? So
Yeah.
I'm also thinking of how to monitor this information, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking of adding a few services that deal with uh, monitoring of the performance of the process, right? So
Yeah.
I might actually even add eventually, not just
Hmm.
a timeout here, but maybe actually do a timer and get a stopwatch here and see
Right.
how long it actually takes and record those. Because one of the things that you have to deal with is that not every store, like remember, this is going to be sending messages to an actual store like a restaurant.
Yeah.
Not all restaurants are the same,
No.
right? So
Yep.
there might be some that have like real robust internet, like really high speed, big bandwidth, and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
there might be somebody that's actually dial up. Uh, I gotta say, it's not actually far fetched. Uh, there's stores using dial up right now because some of the credit card processing
Yeah.
They might still use dial-up for that.
I can tell you from experience that testing dial-up is an absolute nightmare.
Right. So,
Yeah.
um, so again, this right now I'm still experimenting with
Mhm.
this. I want to actually get it to and have an end-to-end working,
Yeah.
so that I can actually put it on. I'm thinking of putting this whole thing in Azure,
Right.
and have it actually working, and I can maybe get some people to actually test it
Yeah.
with real things and
Right.
see where I need to fine tune things. Right.
Right. Yep.
So, um, so this is basically the mass transit things that we're doing, that I'm
Right.
doing.
Yeah.
On the other end, I don't know if you want to see a little bit of what the webhooks API looks like.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
that's
So
actually interesting because the way it works for this integration that I'm doing is with Ubereats, right? This is the
right.
first client, the first API external third-party delivery thing that I'm actually trying to get to,
Right.
uh, and it turns out that's something that I've been working with at my office, and as I can see it, and it's
Mhm.
actually really nice.
Right.
Their API, it's super nice actually.
Right.
But the way they work is they 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 send a notification to a webhook, right? And then the
Right.
webhook actually needs to uh, follow a flow where they get the details of the order, and they do their thing, send it through to the APIs, and go to the point of sale, and then respond back and change the status notifications
Right.
for like the order is prepared or the order was canceled because maybe the item is not available, and so you have to control those with with the client that you have for them,
Right.
right? There's no client that I could find anywhere, so I have to
Gotcha.
make my own.
Right.
And that was interesting also following their documentation to make a client. Uh, and basically did that one looks like this. Uh, Let me see if I can point you to the right place. This guy. This is how what I did is because it's the service that the webhooks API is using.
Right.
I came up with the idea is like I should probably make this a NuGet, right? And so it's own package.
Gotcha.
It has the models that we find in the Uber Eats documentation,
Gotcha.
and this is how I added to the thing to the API.
Yeah.
I made a little uh, extension so that you can actually do
You just
services that
add it into
add
Uber
Uber
Eats
Eats
client.
client,
Right. For reference, by the way,
and it
um,
sets up itself for like where the Uber Eats options are for like
yeah.
the base URL and the um, some other things I'm adding. I haven't done that here yet because I don't I don't actually have a an Uber Eats store tested with yet. But basically that's where you would put up probably the client ID and the client secret, and all that stuff is going to be set up right here.
right. For
Um,
reference, I have just
okay,
pasted the
so
link to the Uber Eats
what I
documentation.
did is
You
that
don't
I
hear me.
hid their API and made an HTTP client using the um, the normal ASP.NET Core, the new way of doing it.
Right.
I guess the new way.
Yeah. Well, it injects the HTTP. Yeah.
Um, I also made a parser for it because the JSON that they respond with is fairly extensive. And
Right.
if you can't, you want to show their website. I know that there's a little uh
Delay.
there's a notification there on their website. But I don't know if you want to show it.
Yeah. So basically, I've posted the link into the chat. This does have a privileged and confidential
Right.
endpoint on
So
it, but you can search for it. Are you able
so
to
you
hear
can
me
see
okay,
there
Junicus?
they have that privileged and confidential
Can't hear
information.
me.
But
You okay? Can you hear me okay?
I'm sorry, I don't know if I have issues here. I don't know if you can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I don't
Because I
think you
can't
can hear
hear
me.
you on the chat. Oh yeah. Now I can hear you.
Now you can hear me? Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure whether the delay.
Maybe I don't know. I don't think I can hear you through
You can't hear me through Discord. You're listening to me through the stream.
the Discord.
Technologies are wonderful.
Now I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. So so I was saying their website has that privileged and confidential, but you can actually search for it from Google. So I don't think we're doing anything wrong here. But if you click on their order API on the
Order API.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, because I have to.
You
I'm
have to
looking
watch the
at you
stream.
on the. Yeah, and the delay is a little bit. All right,
Yep.
so there's the get order details.
Yeah.
That's the one that I had to implement, and it has quite a few fields in the JSON that
Yep.
they return, and so that's all in the model that I created
Gotcha.
on the client that I made.
Right.
Uh, and if you want to show them the way Uber Eats thinks of how the process should work, if I'm not mistaken, let me actually. I'm telling you to do that, and I don't have the website open, so I can really point you. Uber
They
Eats
have a
API.
performance store and menu order API.
Yes, the store and menu API is it's actually interesting. That's how you control whether the store is open or close or update the menu items and things like that.
Right.
But in their guides, there's a webhook. Uh,
Guides. Webhook.
so
Here we go.
that's how they initiate
Sorry.
the message.
Right.
And if you click on the orders integration, that's how they see the flow of how the thing works, right?
Gotcha.
Uh, Somebody puts an order on their website or on their app, and you get a notification with a webhook on the app, and then you
Gotcha.
have to go and do a get details and check
Okay.
whether it's available, do the things, and or if it's there's a problem with the POS, then you can do a deny order and things.
But webhooks are a very solid way of making that distributed system work fine. When the distributed system is parts you don't control,
Yep.
webhooks do seem like a very reasonable way because you don't have to. It's the for Uber or Uber Eats, that is, they don't have to worry about the scale on the other side. They say, okay, you tell us and you deal with the requests. So if you think you're going to get a ton of orders, then you've got to deal with that scale yourself. So you've got to load balance that URL, that you've got to load balance the webhook endpoints. You've got to deal with all the scaling there. It's a
Yep.
pretty good way of disconnecting what is essentially distributed systems.
They also deal with it in a very interesting way. That the initial webhook, they actually send you not actually 7 times. They send you the message
Right.
with an exponential backoff. So you
Okay.
get the initial message. 30 seconds afterwards, you get a second one,
Right.
and then 60 seconds afterwards, you get a third one, and so on. So
Right.
and so even if your website, your API goes down,
Yeah.
where they don't get a response from you,
Mm-hmm.
they can actually tell the client, "Hey, look, there's an error. We can't process your order,"
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
super nice.
A graceful
Uh,
degradation.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and so that's part of why I'm thinking that the way I want to do it in my own thing is, hey, I want to put the message for in the queue, but
Right.
if I don't get a response fast enough, then I want to
Right.
be able to back off from there and do something else.
Gotcha. Yes. Okay.
And so if you show that picture that I posted on Discord before,
Which one?
the one that has basically that has the sequence diagram.
This one.
The
Yeah. So this is in the Discord channel, the sequence diagram one. I'll paste the
so
link.
yeah, that's
So
the
yeah.
one. So in that one I took their what they give us the flow,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to add my parts of the process, right? So
Right.
I have webhooks API that's responding to the webhook and sends it to
Right.
the orders API, and in that design was originally how I was going to do it with Signal R.
Right.
But imagine it's the same thing. Imagine the Signal R column
Mm-hmm.
that's not Signal R anymore. It's just RabbitMQ with
Right.
MassTransit on top of it.
Yes. So really what you're doing, so if I go to Grubhub or DoorDash or Uber Eats or whatever, they'd be here in the marketplace.
Right. They'll have their own marketplace. I imagine most of these party delivery systems,
Mm-hmm.
they'll initialize with a webhook. 'Cause I mean, most likely it's the same way. I've seen
Yeah.
it used in many places, like
Now, what I've seen is in businesses, when I go into a business, I see a DoorDash machine, a Uber Eats machine, and they've actually got separate um, um, order processing. They've got different laptops
yep,
or different screens, and
different
they have to,
tablets.
and each one they see the order, okay, now they're going to process it, and they add it into their own system at that point, right? This is the problem you're solving here. They,
That's exactly the problem I'm trying to solve.
Yeah,
Yes.
they go, okay, they take this order, then they type it into their own system to create their own ticket, and then they charge the payments dealt with, but they still need to track all the order and stuff in their own system, and you're abstracting those marketplaces from the actual POS, and providing one entry point for them rather than X number of devices, because another company cropped up and you've got 4 different tablets now sat at your order station.
Right. Right.
Gotcha.
So here's the thing. Like you say, each one of those third parties, they'll give you a tablet basically
Mm-hmm.
that you put on your restaurant,
Yep.
and so you have a bunch of them in the host. They take up space. They uh you have to stay put and actually wait for orders and things, because
Mm-hmm.
if you start doing something else, you move around and move out of the host area.
Right.
Especially nowadays where you don't get that many people actually coming into the restaurant, right? So
Yeah.
so the host might be doing something else.
Right.
Uh, the order might be sitting there for a while.
Yes.
Uh, Another thing that might happen is the way you design the menu
Mm-hmm.
on those third parties.
Yep.
They're designed for a guest, for a customer, right?
Yes.
So they're very simple, very few modifications, and they're very straightforward. Uh, but that's not how you design a point of sale.
Mm-hmm.
The menu, normally when you do a point of sale, you design it for. Sorry, I'm reading.
I figured you read.
Well, sorry, Anshin. No, you wouldn't send it directly to the kitchen. You would send it to the point of sale. Now the point of sale gets the order, and if they have a kitchen system attached to it, then they'll send it to the kitchen. But the whole point of this is uh, so that the servers or the host, the persons that are attending the orders, right? They don't have to actually type everything in. Uh, they'll get injected directly to the point of sale. How it shows up in the kitchen and other reports and things like that, right? So that's up to the POS. Uh, Again, when you design a menu for a POS, you design it for the server. You don't
Hmm.
design it for a customer.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be a bunch of things in there that the customer is never gonna know, right? And you're gonna
Hmm.
have codes, things
Yeah.
like 86. Like I don't know if you have worked on or seen or have know somebody that works in the kitchen,
I pay
right?
attention when we go to the diner.
Right.
The diner is a little bit more obvious because they're all about the speed rather than the actual, the experience, right? So the screens are front and center. You see a big screen with the seats and the tables on, and then they press a button and it takes them into order mode, and you just see them just whacking codes in there and creating it all. Yeah.
But not only that, but I mean, you might if you listen to them, right? The way they talk to the kitchen, right?
Right.
They're going to say, oh, this item is 86 or
Hmm.
things like that, right? That's basically that they don't have the item,
Yeah.
and so when you decide the point of sale, you think of those and you say no, the 86 cheese or 86
Yeah.
tomato,
Yeah.
right? But that's not how you set it up on the Ubereats tablets or
Right.
those third-party tablets, right? You're gonna have
Hmm.
no onions,
Yeah.
or you might not even have that option, right? You
Right.
might let it up to the client to type it in,
Yeah.
right? You don't want you don't. Sometimes you want to try to make it so that there's the minimum modifications in the
Yeah.
system.
I've seen a few of these systems now where I primarily use DoorDash, but I've seen where the restaurants basically tried to manipulate the menu to try and give them a little bit more information, or they'll like post things in there to try and get you to contact them directly and things like that. But
Yep.
they'll try and make it quicker to get through that menu, for them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and also uh you might get upsells
Hmm.
in the and the third party. You might get upsells that are modifiers of the item,
Hmm.
but those you may not have the same design on the POS, right?
Yeah.
So the webhooks API that I'm creating is to it's one of the jobs that it's going to have is to parse the order
Hmm.
and translate it so it's the right shape for placing the order,
Right.
right? All right,
Gotcha.
do me a favor. I'm going to take a second to go to the restroom.
Okay. Yep. No worries.
All right,
Yep.
well,
So okay. So just okay. So while Junicus takes a bit of a break, yeah. So basically, this is an entry point, and this is another entry point, right? So we started off by going through the um. Hey, Kobe Sean. Got a bit of loop back there, so I'm going to mute my microphone so it doesn't loop back into Junicus. So the we did the order. We looked at the order controller first, where it takes a process order command, but then he has the webhooks integration to interface with Ubereats. So you could potentially just feed straight into the order system. So this is giving that level of abstraction, so you could integrate with all manner of systems in this way. So I definitely see the benefit here. And like I said, I've seen, the restaurants with the the wall of tablets, and they're trying to keep track of whose orders coming in through where, and I've experienced the host has not been sat where the tablet should be, and 20 minutes later you get a order cancelled, because they're too busy now. Yes, Ko-Wi-Chon got mod abilities a couple of weeks ago. It's good to have the backup.
All right, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Sorry about that.
No
I'm
worries.
gonna have a few breaks because I downed. I made the mistake of downing a 44 ounce Coke before I started the stream. So,
Breaks are good.
all right. So, I was saying the service, the webhook service, one of its jobs will be to translate the order into the standard that I'm gonna make for the order API.
Right. Yeah. So you've got the process order from the API controller. This is your entry point, right? This is your order API.
Yep.
Right. So you can use your webhooks to translate, and then you've got a common API for creating orders against the store.
Yeah, and the reason, one of the reasons why I want to separate the things is so that the code that lives in the orders API is very simple. It's very specific for the orders.
Yeah.
The code that lives in the webhooks is very specific for the webhooks, and the clients that go at the store will also have very specific code for the client itself, right? So,
Yeah.
so for example, your Burger King or the Olive Garden, right? They might have a specific need, so their client that sits at the store might have a certain, but might be different from I don't know, from Chili's or whatever,
Right.
right? Because their orders are different. They might use a different point of sale, uh, right?
Yeah.
And so that the job of that client will also be taking the order from the order API and translating into what the point of sale needs.
Right.
Now there's a cool thing here. In let's see, in here in the webhooks API. Let me see if I can find it
Well, back in
really
code.
quick. Yeah, back in the
Back
code.
in code.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, it's where did I put it? I know here you go. If you go, oh, actually you're following me, right?
Yeah, I'm following you.
So awesome. So one other thing is this infrastructure thing. The way I see the infrastructure code is things that are external to the system, and
Right.
so conversions. I think they're an external point, right? I'm taking something that comes in from outside, turns
Right.
it into something that I use inside, right? And
Gotcha.
so basically it's a service that I'm implementing it, and the way I saw it is I'm gonna get a very generic converter service,
Gotcha.
uh,
Yep.
and then I'm gonna overload the convert uh, function here.
Okay.
This convert, I'm gonna have overloads for specific integrations, right? If I
Yep.
do a DoorDash, well, the DoorDash is gonna give me a model. It's probably gonna be different from whatever other third-party delivery system, right?
Gotcha.
So I'm gonna be using the signature of this function to then get an actual converter that they'll have the logic that I need. In this case, this code.
Right.
And one of the things that I want to see if I can get to is have see if I can find patterns in the way people make uh, their menus in
Right.
this and right now webhooks is for those third parties, right? But eventually the same idea I'm gonna have for maybe websites and things like that.
Yeah.
uh like everywhere there are gonna be patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I found two patterns initially where an item might have a group or a sub item
Right.
that I want to promote for the main item.
Yes. Right.
For example, a good example, if I want a steak, well, which size of steak? Normally in
Yeah.
the POS, you're gonna have a 8-ounce New York steak,
Yeah.
or maybe you have a 12-ounce New York steak, right?
Mm-hmm.
So usually the pattern is that in those third parties, you're gonna have steak in New York steak, right? And
Right.
there's gonna ask you, oh, is it a 6-ounce or 8-ounce or a 12-ounce or whatever?
Yeah.
So really, that's a promotion of which one is the actual main item. The main item
Right.
will turn out to be New York 6-ounce.
Okay.
Uh, that's that's where I'm getting this promote main.
Right.
Uh, in Ubereats, you can the modifier group you can label it with an
Gotcha.
external ID.
Okay.
So I'm gonna be looking for that and doing some stuff.
Right.
And there's another promote independent. It's that one I'm thinking of an upsell, right? I
Right.
give you a state. I'll give you the size, the term, the medium term, right?
Right.
Or the fries and whatever. But the drink,
Mm-hmm.
I might actually have a modifier in that menu saying, "Hey, do you want a soda or do you want a beer?" And
Gotcha.
those items normally on the point of sale, on the real point of sale, there will be a separate item for that.
Right.
So that's gonna be like that promote independent thing. And
So,
so there's code here for uh interpreting that stuff.
okay. So do you have to write for every integrate? So is that specific? Do you? Sorry, let me rethink that question again.
Yep.
Do you end up asking the restaurant to follow a pattern when entering their menu into the point of the entry system to be able
Well,
to achieve this?
there's yes, there's gonna have to be some things that they have to do.
Right.
Uh, but here's the thing: like normally, if you might be starting up with a third party integration,
Mm-hmm.
like a delivery system, you
Right.
might say, "Oh, just give the items in there," because when I get the order, I know the name of the item, and the
Right.
server is the one that's going to be entering, right?
Yep.
Well, that's not going to work for this kind of integration. I need a way to map IDs, right?
Right.
And so that's part of one of the things that you as a client you would have to change on your menu
Right.
is to have those IDs in there somewhere.
Right.
But what I'm thinking is that if I mean I haven't looked at other integrations yet, so I don't know exactly what, for example, DoorDash gives you
Right.
when you place an order. Uh,
Okay.
what I'm thinking is that that's the main two patterns that I've seen so far is that when you put an item, but one of the modifications is what the actual item is,
Right.
or you have an item and the modification is actually a different item that you want to add.
Okay.
All right, so
So
and
one of the question there. Now, obviously, like you said, you've not used Uber Eats. You've only used Uber Eats right now. You're not using DoorDash or anything like that. But if there's information, is there information in those APIs that each one might produce differently? Would you ever store that? Like,
well,
is there a storage level at this point?
well, uh, mm, I'm thinking that I'm gonna have to store something. I don't
Right.
know. I don't know where yet. I don't know if I'm gonna be storing it in the webhook part is just, hey, I got an order, but I'm not gonna store the details. The difference here is from maybe a different uh system is that I don't really want to store too much information of the actual thing.
Yeah.
uh not I don't it's not that I don't want to store, it's that some of the stuff I might not need because it's not gonna live long. I need
Right.
to answer right away. And so
Okay.
I might have like, you know, at the webhook, I might have just the order and maybe some details like the amount and items and some stuff like that,
Right.
and say success or fail, something like that.
Gotcha.
At the order store, though, at the order API, I'm actually store more information about the actual order and
Right.
what items were in there. Because
Yeah.
that one, it's my API, and that one
Yeah.
I want to keep because I don't know, maybe I'm gonna use that information for billing
Right.
eventually. Uh,
So the webhooks API isn't a contributor. It isn't using RabbitMQ.
no, no,
It
it could though, but I don't know if that design will be useful. I don't know yet.
right. I'm wondering about this. And so in the case of you have the entry point. So again, marketplace in this diagram is Ubereats. Ubereats sends an order notification. Your webhook is going to receive that and turn around and call process order, which is going to acknowledge, right? So once it sends to the store and the orders acknowledged there, you're going to bounce that straight back up. So that's a very synchronous process, the way it's standing right now. But if there's a
Yes.
delay there, does Uber Eats have a, it's a disconnected process. If that fails for whatever reason, but the order was received, but the message didn't get back yet, how do you deal with those sorts of scenarios?
All right. So if you look at the red parts,
Mm-hmm.
the red part of the diagram is failure,
Yeah.
failure flows.
Right.
And so what I was thinking is that if I used a basic HTTP post from the webhook to the order API,
Right.
uh, I can use the timeout, and if I don't get a response in a timely manner,
Right.
uh, I might actually go back and say that the order failed.
Okay.
But the timing is what I'm not sure just yet if it's gonna be like the one call or if I take their lead and say, oh no, I'm gonna do a back off because I have a certain time to answer uh on to that third, well, at least to Uber right now.
Yeah.
I have a certain time that I can take the order ID and say, hey, I have accepted the order or
Yeah.
I cancel the order, right?
Gotcha.
And that flow is not synchronous.
Mm-hmm.
uh I get a message, but what timing I do with that message, I might take a minute to actually do it, and it
Right.
wouldn't be an issue. uh so I'm not sure yet if I could do the same thing that I'm doing with the clients at the store
Right.
and have it flow through the service bus and
Gotcha.
have that timing there, and maybe I can make that one resilient for like uh, a minute or two. And if
Yeah.
nobody answering there in that time, then it fails. But have the one that goes to the store fail faster.
Yep. Okay. Ancient God, I see you're handling customer cancellation.
Right now, I wouldn't. Right now, I'm not handling anything. but
Yeah.
yes, there is in the webhook the message that you get two types of messages. You get in this particular case, you can either get a notification that there's a new order,
Yeah.
or you get another webhook with a notification that says that the client canceled.
Right.
and and that is actually a very hard thing to manage,
Right.
uh, because yes, I can cancel it, but what if the kitchen already started making the food and I cancel it?
Yeah.
Do I void items on the POS?
Right.
Do I notify the manager to handle that cancellation? See,
Right.
that part is it's hard to determine. And what think might happen is that if you want to do this kind of implementation, uh, customer cancellations have to be dealt with differently. You might have to call the store and they have to cancel it.
Right. Agent Code is a Uber
Yeah,
Eats connoisseur.
that is correct. That is correct.
Right.
Uh, that is correct. That's another thing, ancient coder. With this kind of implementation, I might not even give the customer, a chance to cancel, because it's gonna happen so fast.
Yeah.
Normally, the time you have to cancel is because your order is sitting there in a tablet somewhere, waiting for somebody to say, "Hey, I received the order."
Gotcha.
They actually click a button and
Yeah.
say confirm. Ah,
But you're going to auto accept the order for them. If their POS is
right.
up, you're going to say, "Yep, I'm accepting this order for you."
That's right. So
Right.
I might not even get a chance to the customer
Right.
to actually cancel that order. So
Right. So from this
that might
perspective,
be a
that's
bit hard.
synchronous nature.
Yep, that might be a little hard to deal with, but
Yeah. Gotcha. Huh. Yeah, I mean, like I
I,
said, I've sat there before and waited half an hour and eventually got the sorry, we can't actually fulfill the order because that device is sat on a desk and they weren't actually there, but they'd left the restaurant active and open on
yep,
DoorDash, right? So they
yeah.
weren't there. COVID had hit, right? So
Yeah, I'm actually having to deal with that now, because now we need to manage. Again, I remember the company that I work for actually
mhm.
has an implementation like this.
Right,
Not mine, but something like this. And
yeah,
so now we're starting to see which things we're gonna have to deal with, and
yeah,
that is one of them. I don't simply turn off the tablet at the store. I actually, with their integration that I have right now, they
yeah,
keep the tablet there,
right,
because you still do other things with the
right,
tablet, right? You'd say you don't have an item available or things like that.
hmm,
Uh, but now you don't simply close or turn off the tablet. Yeah, I actually have to turn off the the API.
right, yeah, okay,
So it's a little bit different to handle it.
yeah,
And code with Sean. Yes, there is a point where you say you cannot cancel the order, but that really depends on the store. Uh, mm, uh, I might have orders that somebody else says, yeah, yeah, we don't have it. I'm not gonna go pick it up, and the store might decide, depending on what type of items, and they might decide to absorb the cost. It's sometimes it's better to have a happy customer that, even if it sounds, you know bad because I'm losing money, but sometimes it's better have a happy customer than somebody that's gonna go in and say, "Oh, I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that," and complain.
yeah, yeah, because
And what
those
I
those get seen.
depending on what items they might be, what I lose, it's minimum.
Hmm.
If it happens one or twice, it's not that bad.
Yeah,
If it happens a lot, then yeah, sure,
yeah,
there has to be something done there. But
yeah.
it depends.
Okay, cool. Okay,
All right. So,
so let's. So you're translating the orders, you're converting them from the Ubereats import, and then you translate them into the actual order, and you're dealing with these upsells. And
yeah, we're dealing with upsells, and I'm thinking that other implementations might have similar type of code where I have to deal with turning what they give me into something that's useful for the API.
gotcha.
Uh, so one other thing is the first, again, I'm taking stuff from where I work
Hmm.
and buildings. We're not a programming company, right? So
Right.
I don't think I'm gonna have problems with building my own thing and
Yeah.
selling it on the side. We don't
Yeah.
make software. We deal with restaurants, and so
Yeah.
so
Well, if I was to go and do this for my company, I'd be in trouble because I'm a
probably.
developer. I'm a developer of the software. If I tried to create a competing product or a product that you know that you
Well,
could be giving them for free,
yeah, no,
they'd be
no,
kind
and
of
then
upset with me.
hopefully I'm not gonna get into trouble, 'cause I'm not gonna be the one selling it either anyway. So
Yeah.
I don't think I'm gonna have that issue. But one of the things is it's I am actually taking experience from what we're doing in translating into this, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I have is our point of sale.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there are a bunch of different point of sales in production right now, and some of them have different features, right? So I'm taking the one that we use,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the first implementation that I'm gonna make.
Right.
We use uh, NCR Aloha, right?
Right.
Um, I'm taking what I think, what I thought is that I'm gonna use their main model. They have a set of APIs and things like that. They have a model, the structure, and the way they inject the order into their point of sale. And what I thought is I should take that model and bring it closer to what my API will use, right?
Okay.
So the model that I'm using is very close to that one,
Right.
to the ones that they have.
Right. So you're going to end up
Uh,
adapting.
but unfortunately, that's gonna have to be it, because
Right.
eventually, if I add some other point of sale, their way of doing things will be completely different.
Right.
Uh, now,
But
will
but
will be completely different the way they integrate, but the models, the concepts are going to be the same, right?
yeah.
You have an item, and you have sub items and things. Those are your modifiers. You have a price, you have a quantity, you have a tax.
Yeah.
Uh, those things might translate to all types of POS.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when you do these sorts of things, because over time, someone said, "I can do that part, I can do that part, I can do that part," and you've got all these different pieces. So you're taking what is many different potential inputs. You want to convert into a common format to make a standard entry point for your own API to be able to process this and distribute this correctly at scale, at speed. But then you may have to end up writing multiple conversions again to get it to go into the APIs on the other end for the POS. But that is a selling point: the flexibility, the wide, the diversity of the systems it can both interact with from incoming and outgoing. That does make customers do like that sort of flexibility.
Yeah, and what I'm thinking is that diversity is gonna be at the edge of the system, right?
Yes.
At the input or the output on the store.
Yeah.
Uh, the middle part, the services that are in between, that's the ones that I want to standardize as much as I can.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean the architecture, when you're doing that sort of development, the architecture of your system will make or break you, because it will either make it so that you're doing a whole load of work for every single integration and that you get to that big ball of mud sooner, or you keep them sufficiently that's the right word, detached from the core of the system, that they're just plugins and they work just like plugins, and I think that's what you're aiming for so far, from
Yes.
what I've seen so far.
Well,
You don't want them taking up the middle part, which is the speedy distribution of the actual orders from multiple sources.
exactly. I mean, if I'm gonna trying to leverage as much as I can the edges of it, so that
Mm-hmm.
when and that's also something why I separated the services, right? I've
Right.
got webhook service because I might have many orders coming in from Ubereats, and it's going to be heavy processing because it has to transform the order into something that is common for all different uh, the delivery platforms,
Yep.
right? So I have to translate those into something common for the order system,
Right.
and so it can move around and get delivered to the right place.
Yep.
And again, on the side of the stores, I might have a different set of clients. They communicate the same way. That's one of the reasons what I was thinking that I should make a like a NuGet client library for my own order API,
Yeah.
so that even if I make multiple versions of the client at the store that deal with different point of sales,
Right.
maybe most of the app is the same, and they have a plugin where there's a NCR converter, right? Or there's uh, a Zumba POS converter, or there's a Micros POS converter.
Right.
And so you don't have to like you get the part that communicates with the service bus is the same,
Right.
but the one that communicates to the actual point of sale is going to be it's going to change depending on where I put it,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
And it's as interesting because the way I was thinking of doing it for this particular one, the I don't have a way to show you. It's in a separate in my repo. I have a bunch of experiments that I've done, right?
Right.
And one of them has it's dealing with communicating with the actual point of sale.
Right.
And one of the things that I did there is that uh sorry, one of the things that I did there is that their way of communicating with the POS, this is a POS that's been in the business for quite a long time,
Right.
and so their system works with COM. I don't know if you remember COM, but it's
Oh.
like where
I remember com.
so that's what they expose. They expose a bunch of COM objects,
Oh, goodness me.
and you have to I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, and a few weeks ago, uh, I was dealing with loading DLLs and things like that, trying to see if I can have a program and load
Right.
DLLs, load assemblies from different folders, right?
Right. Yes.
And originally I wanted to do uh ASP.NET Core, sorry, not ASP.NET Core, the .NET Core console application,
Right.
because this is going to be, usually these systems they run on Windows, so you want to have a service running, right?
Right.
Uh, and so I was trying to make that, and in this particular case, for the one that I'm trying to do, even though the I'm trying just it's actually just an API.
Okay.
The COM object actually has WPF in it,
Uh,
and so imagine that you
embedded
do a .NET.
WPF and a com deal. Oh,
So uh, when I tried to load that COM object in a .NET Core console app, it's just gonna say, "Oh, well, you don't have WPF Windows Base, whatever,
yeah.
or the Windows Presentation DLL."
Yeah.
You don't have those. And even though recently Microsoft made WPF available to the .NET Core,
Yeah.
they actually took out a lot of things,
Yeah.
and they
Well,
work slightly different.
that's
They're
across the
they're
cross
they're
platform.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They're
Yeah.
there. They just work slightly different.
Right.
And so
Ouch.
and also the COM objects that they did,
Mm-hmm.
they are full framework.
Yeah.
So again, I could get away with some stuff in a core .NET Core app,
Right.
but the clients, I'm gonna have to make them full framework with, so that they can actually get all the items and all the
Okay.
DLS they can.
Yeah.
So again, things like happen with different implementations, right? So
Right.
a different POS might even give you an API, a website, a
Gotcha.
WebSocket that you can just connect and,
Right.
hey, inject an order to here.
But in general, you want to keep these things at arm's length
Yeah,
from the rest of the system, so that you
definitely,
don't
definitely.
have to bog down your main code with those pieces. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, and one of the things that I did is I wrapped their whole COM object and made it an interface
Right.
so that I could talk to it with all the excess bloat that they have, or they have API. Look, they have APIs that are half in English, half in Spanish. They actually have functions in that COM object that have methods that are in Spanish, which is crazy.
Wow.
Which is crazy. But I saw some of those, and I was like, well, I was like, look, I'm gonna make an interface, and I'm gonna have an actual implementation of the proxies there into their stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the best you can do there, but you've made it cleaner. Yeah, I hate swapping that fast. Well, if you're a developer, you go to read that code and you can read 50% of it. That's even worse.
Yeah, no, and unfortunately, another thing. Well, I mean, what can I say? It's actually widely known that in that particular company, they don't like people doing third party implementations, right? So
they obscure
have
it. They
an
make it harder. Yeah.
yes, and so
Yes.
guess what? Half of their DLLs are obfuscated. So I managed to figure out how to inject an order because that part of the DLL is not obfuscated, but the other ones, I can't. I don't know. I don't even know what they are.
Yeah.
They have some weird codes.
Yeah. Well, that's just working through.
So, so that's going to be interesting. I do have samples of it in another repo, but eventually, it's going to be part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Another decision that I took for microservices here is another reason why I separated into microservices is I wanted to be able to scale out independently.
Yes.
So I might be getting a bunch of orders on the web API, but not all the notifications that I'm getting there have to go all the way to the orders API.
Right.
Or maybe the orders API is going to be I need it to scale to a larger. I don't know if scale up or scale out, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know yet which one I'm gonna go with, but
yeah.
That's when I saw the other day that Cian Horn's doing Docker. I was like, oh, that's not a bad idea. I could probably do Docker, and so that's one of the things that I've been doing in this project is Dockerizing all of the APIs so that I can eventually, and this is how one of them looks, so that I can actually eventually maybe do a Kubernetes thing or Service Fabric or whatever. I'm not sure yet which one I'm gonna use, but whatever Azure gives out. Well, gives out. No, doesn't give it out. They sell, but you know what I mean.
You've got approval. An ancient code asks, where does the name Hermes come from? I know because I've used this name before, but go ahead.
So who is Hermes?
The messenger.
He's the god of messengers and thieves. so what can I say? It's like, dude, it fits so well. but because I thought of Hermes initially because basically this whole thing is a messaging platform, right? You're taking messages from one end and moving it to the different one.
You'll often find email servers called Hermes.
I picked it up because I thought initially of messages, and then the other part of it is like, oh, that's interesting. But I see anyone likes the Docker file. Yeah. I mean, I've been reading up on this, and it's interesting though. You do this so that you can get performance enhancements on build time,
So
because
you
it
so,
can.
so
Yeah,
you're
go ahead.
explicitly stating all the CS proj files there to
Yes,
build.
but it's more the ones. It's more the parts that are used by the older system,
Right.
because when you build the Docker, when you run Docker compose build,
Right.
you can actually kind of cache previous restores and things like that.
Right.
So when the first project gets built,
hmm
that might use Meteor, or Auto Mapper or something like
Right.
that. The next ones, they don't have to restore it because it's already
Ah.
part of it is
Okay.
already uh, kind of cache in the system.
Right. So you're
So
incrementally improving the speed of the process.
yes,
Gotcha.
you because of the important thing though is, like, every Docker file you use in the system has to be the same,
Right.
or at least not the same in the whole thing, but the part that goes above copy dot,
hmm
uh, they have to be the same in order to say, hey, the whole build section is cache,
Right.
and
Okay.
then you just run here. This publish is specific for this API.
Right.
Uh, and for example, if part of the system didn't change,
hmm
the build process will actually detect this, like, oh, I already have that. I don't need to build that container again, that container image. I don't have to build it again. And
Okay.
so you speed up the system a little bit on the build time and build and like Cian says, on the CI and CD part of the thing.
Right. Yeah, I think the thing for me with the Docker file was getting my head around the idea that it's not. When I first saw the copy things, I was just thought, oh, we're just putting the pieces on in place, and that's what we're doing. We're just kind of saying, oh, copy these parts, copy these parts. Then when I got my head around the idea of, no, we're actually using it as a build. We're actually building the product on there. Then it helped me. So you're moving the parts into
I mean,
place and having it.
in this particular, the way they do it on ASP.NET, it's both. It's actually the image and the build part of it.
Yeah.
I could, in theory, have the whole build outside of the system
Right.
and
And
just copy
compile.
the DLLs, just
Right.
copy the assemblies in there and
Yeah.
just run it. But this way, it works perfect for a CI/CD pipeline, because or anybody that uses it. Like, for
Yeah.
example, if you run it right now or later, when you run it, you didn't have to set up your system
Yeah.
to to have the stuff. You get the image for base, you get the image for the build, the SDK, and so you don't have to deal with that.
Well, I remember.
Everybody that comes in could potentially just run the Docker
Yeah.
containers and have the system running.
I remember setting up CI/CD. When I was working on a previous system and having to have the build agents set up to you basically install a build agent on a server, and you had to install all the right tools on that build agent just to be able to build the software. So you have to have all the libraries in place and everything. Docker really, now a build agent can just be, as long as it can build the Docker file, then it's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
That's one of the main benefits. We put all the pieces in place in the image, and there we go. We're done. We can build it there.
And in reality, here you have to do the same thing.
Yeah,
It turns out that the stuff that I have right in for now, the stuff that I have is just ASP.NET, right?
yeah,
It's just APIs and there's no UI code in
yeah.
any of this stuff
Right.
right now. But
Yeah,
eventually, for example, I might have a dashboard where I can manage client keys, right?
yeah.
And so Dota and then and you saw me put it on the Discord channel.
hmm
I like React. I'm sorry, I don't like Blazor. I like React.
That's fine. Yeah.
Uh, I find it really easy to do,
Yeah.
and it's good enough for me that I can actually work it fast,
Yeah.
right?
That's the key.
In the case of that dashboard, now I use React for the front end, but the
Mm-hmm.
back end it's ASP.NET.
Yeah.
I don't do Node
Node. Oh, yeah.
or Python or PHP or any of those.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I've been playing around recently with Node, and it's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's actually really easy to do too.
Okay.
But for example, for that, a Docker file for a ASP.NET React project
Right.
wouldn't work like this, and I would need to add Node to this image because
Right.
the build image doesn't have Node,
Gotcha.
and so you still technically you still have to add things to the build engine to the
Right.
build part of Docker, but they're standard, right? So
But it's
you don't.
yeah. The beauty is it's recreatable. It's technically documenting the requirements anyway, and it doesn't have to be all set up on one machine. You know, we had the issue where a build agent, a server with a build agent on died, right? Oh, what was on that server? I don't know. Let's try and reinstall the parts again, and basically it was run the builds until we figured out which pieces were missing. Because the build, this was early Team City, and it wasn't until much later in their process that they actually got good at telling you what pieces they actually had installed and what they could actually build with. So you basically had to guess what you'd put on there if you weren't the one who'd built that server up and got it running, you know, because yeah, responsible responsible project ownership and all. But
I have code. I mean, I'm not a developer, right? This is something I've said before. I don't actually work as a programmer.
you're not a
Right.
professional developer right now.
Well, yeah, right. Let's say it that way. But I have code that's been running for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
Stuff that I've done and remembering stuff that I've done that far away.
Yeah.
And having to maintain it is like, well, what did I use back then?
Yeah.
I know it was C++. I mean, I know it was C#.
Yeah.
How I did, I've had. I mean, I've done WinForms. I've done WPF. Nowadays, I do web.
Yeah.
Because but all the stuff that I do is small tools that other people use in the company.
Yes.
I don't actually make software, big software that they use, but some of those tools they've been running for 15 years.
Yeah.
And so, but every time they change something, I was like, damn, I gotta remember what I did. It's like I sometimes, you do a small tool, then you do a different one, but the UI you make it kind of like the same, so that it's easier for them to use because they already know the pattern. And so it's like they tell me I need to change this thing. There's a new report, there's new something, and I need to change it. I'm like, I gotta connect to the computer. It's like run it so I can see the UI. I was like, I need to figure out which one it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've built plenty of tools throughout my time, and it's fun. That's that's where I get most of my satisfaction, building things that help people do what they need to do. I find that one of the most satisfying components as a developer. But it's got to the point now where, I'm in a place where they could use that sort of action, those sorts of actions where it's like, oh, we'll just put this together. But now I've learned I got to be obstructive because of the reasons of documentation, because of those things coming back and biting you. I can't do those sorts of things anymore.
Yeah, that's something that I've always lacked. It's that I don't write documentation. If you
Mm-hmm.
see the code I don't have any documentation.
Yeah.
I recently I've starting to do things in a very specific way.
Yeah.
So and usually when I code, I try to code in a way that the code itself actually tells you what it is supposed to do.
Yep.
I very rarely use, single letter variables.
Yeah.
What the heck is that?
Well.
That you don't use that. So, but uh nowadays I'm trying to kind of standardize the way I do things,
Mm-hmm.
and all my new software is the same, but I still don't write a single line of documentation.
Yeah. So
So
I'm reading Ancient Coder's comments. So your code is working for 15 years and you still don't consider yourself a developer. I think that's a
well,
common problem with people when they don't do it as a main profession.
yeah,
They
that's
don't
when I
consider themselves on par with someone who does do it professionally. And I
yes,
think that's a mistake, by the way.
I would say that's the way I say it is because technically my job description is not programming. I work in IT.
Right, but
It
I,
turns out that I know and I
but
really like programming.
I can count on one hand developers who would have developed this so far in the short space of time you've developed what you've developed here, right? I mean, we knocked together a sample the other day in a couple of hours and got kind of pieces working, but we didn't have the refinement or the design there. We didn't have those coding practices in there. So did my monitor just really go to sleep? Wow. So, just because you are not paid to professionally develop doesn't mean you are not a professional level developer.
Well, I mean, yeah, because if again, like I said, yes. When I say I'm not a developer, it's because
Yeah.
of the job description that I have.
Right.
But for example, in I don't know, 25 years maybe.
Yeah.
That I left school.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Gets scarier every year that passes. How long that is, right?
yeah, but I mean, uh, uh, I've been programming since I was in 7th grade, right?
Yeah.
So back then it was basic. I really, really wanted to do C++ back then, but I couldn't get a compiler. Uh, but when I started in college, it's C++ and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, and then afterwards I did some Java, actual Java, not
Mm-hmm.
JavaScript, but Java, and 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 then of course when C Sharp came out, it was like, oh, this is cool. This is better than Java. I like it more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I've been using for the most. And of
Yeah.
course, recently when I started doing, instead of doing front end on the Windows type of apps,
Mm-hmm.
WPF or WinForms,
Yeah.
um, when I started doing web apps, I was like, I like I like React. I don't.
Yeah.
I at the beginning I tried Angular,
Mm-hmm.
but it was the Angular before they changed it.
Angular JS, the original one,
Yes,
the one
the
that looks
original
more
one.
like Vue in its first iteration.
The let's call it original, the
Yeah.
OG.
Yeah.
Uh that it started doing it right when it changed. I was like,
Mm.
this is so hard because I couldn't get documentation for it.
Yeah.
And you search for something, and it's it the new one or is it the old one?
Yeah.
And I tried initially. I learned some jQuery. That was hell. I didn't like it at all.
Well,
But
for those of us that are a client side challenge, jQuery was a much needed tool.
but then after I try Angular, I try React
Mm-hmm.
when it a little bit not JavaScript frameworks, they change a lot. So I'm thinking that it wasn't too far into when it was publicly released, right? Because
Right.
JavaScript was a Facebook thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, not JavaScript, but
React,
React.
yeah.
But when they released it, I started using it. It's like, you know what? I actually understand this. It's a lot how I would do things, and so I've been using it for a long time,
Yeah.
and I really like it.
Yeah.
Um. Anyways, so that whole thing was because if I needed Node to compile JavaScript, I would have to add it to the Docker file.
Well, yeah, I mean, the purpose of this is obviously to go through the project as well, but the Q&A does help. And the one thing I was trying to pick up on there is because the Ancient Coder prompted about considering yourself a developer. There's a lot of people that are developers that don't do it professionally, or they might be scared to do it because, you know, that imposter syndrome. Well, you know, that I didn't go to school for it, or I do it in my spare time, but I've never done it professionally. There's a confidence level that people really should get over there, because there's a lot of very good programmers out there that don't do it professionally, but you know, they should be doing, they could be doing if they have the confidence in themselves. So I just wanted to pick up on that because it's worth that discussion. But
yeah, I know that if life didn't turn out how it did, I would be a programmer right now.
Yeah.
Well, because I've loved this for a long time.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay, so let's continue a bit, and maybe we can get something running and see what runs. And yeah.
So I mean, I guess you might. I don't know if you want to see some of the way I do some of the commands and how I some of the text that I use, because for example, I don't.
You have another question from Ancient Coder, by the way.
What led you to IT? Money. Basically money. Lots of money. They pay me quite well. I mean, for what I do, yeah, they pay me good. But when I was in school, I had to work, and I started with the company that I'm at right now, and I didn't actually finish college because I was like, well, I like this. I actually like IT. No, don't get me wrong. There are challenges all the time, especially in the industry that I work with.
Yes.
It's very fluid. It's not like IT for a major corporation, right? Because this thing moves fast, and you have to do things dirty, quick and dirty. Unfortunately, it's not the best way sometimes to do it, but I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
And especially when you have to deal with stores. There's a movie. I don't remember. I think it's Shenanigans, or it was. I think that maybe that was the restaurant inside the movie. But
Right.
anyways, you see a back. You know how they work, and it's basically the same thing. You you have to deal with things happening all the time.
Yeah.
So I really like it too. But you know, there's that little itch programming. You know, I can scratch it with it, and I really like it too. And at least I get to do it sometimes. You know.
Yeah. Well, the you know, the grass is always greener and all. You know, the problems that present themselves in IT, even as a developer with the same sort of stuff, you're going to experience the same sort of problems. And you know, one of the things you're doing here is laying down an architecture that you can build upon. And like we said, you're keeping things separate, right? And I'm just bringing it back into here because it is kind of pertinent in that, you know, when you have to make those quick decisions, when you have to make those hacky decisions, right? Whether it's in IT and you do making a quick decision to get someone's system up and running quicker, or whatever compromise you have to make, you're going to end up making compromises on the software side. But you're trying to, you actually, by designing the way you are insulating yourself from those those moments, because those parts where you're going to have to make the worst decisions are actually on the input to the system and on the output from your system. Right.
Yeah, that hopefully, yeah, basically this. Hopefully, I'll get the actual services
Mm-hmm.
to be very very straightforward and very resilient, and hopefully, I mean, like I gotta say right here that I'm looking at this and I'm
Yeah.
already cringing with it because that's magic, magic strings and all
Yeah.
that. But if I think of how I'm planning to deploy eventually,
Yeah.
which is hopefully with containers,
Right.
well, then I have a standard system, no matter if it's running on my computer or
Mm-hmm.
the orchestrator or whatever
Yeah.
container registry, whatever,
Yeah.
however it runs, right? They'll have a very standard thing, and
Yeah.
and so I'm no, I'm normally I wouldn't do things like that, but still is I'm testing stuff around, I'm moving stuff, but eventually I I mean, also, I gotta say, because it's not like I came up with all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've read a few things
Yeah.
and I'm tried different things and I've seen some other code, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna tell you that I wrote everything and it's everything. I did not reinvent the wheel, right?
No. Well,
Uh,
that's what we all do. We none of us really stand alone. We are. I hate the repetition of the phrase, but we're standing on the shoulders of giants, right?
yep,
We're
definitely.
continually adding based upon our knowledge. I might do something, you might do something. Your decision, and that's why I do say that it doesn't matter whether you've been programming for 5 minutes or 5 years or 5 decades. Don't assume that you can't learn something. And if you go forward and think I have to use what I know and I can't use what other people know, and take that as the correct way to do it, then you're never going to really adapt and become a
Yeah,
better
and
developer.
you'll become obsolete because
Yeah.
you don't. You, oftentimes you don't have time to come up with new things,
Yeah.
and if you don't see other stuff, and you're not gonna change. You're gonna
Yeah.
be doing the same thing all over again.
Yeah.
So the one of the examples here, the way I split up the projects and the
Yeah.
way even the way I'm using Mediator,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, I, that's a little bit. If you look into eShop on containers, I think that's the project.
Right.
You'll see that it's a lot like that. The way they separate their services.
Yeah.
Um, of course, I don't have the whole thing. They have way more stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's an incredible project to learn from because they have health checks. They have they have the service their the way they use their service bus. I mean, they have a lot in there. So it's also taking the stuff that they have that you can use and it's gonna work for you.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
here's something for Mediator. Uh, I'm doing a pipeline, right? So I have a different preprocessors and validation
Right.
code that runs in the pipeline. So when I send a command, all of this happens before the command gets actually handled.
Okay. This is the stuff we've briefly looked at in the past, and I've
Yeah,
just never delved into. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So for example, this is a basic logger. All the messages get logged.
Right.
Uh, this is a basic performance behavior.
Ah.
Basically, this is something that I'm thinking I will use because this is the timer, how long the request takes to be handled, to handle it.
Yep.
And so in this case, it's just logging all the requests that take more than 500 milliseconds to finish.
Huh.
Uh, so that could indicate that the system is running slow for some reason.
Yeah.
And this could be a metric that I can use to say, hey, I want to auto scale.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Spool up another service. We might need some more throughput.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm just using it for logging, but that
here's
could be
here's a
something.
challenge for you, by the way. How do you do that in the most resilient way possible without hard coding the scale out in there?
Health checks, and I'm thinking that kind of the same kind of logic will go into a health check.
Yeah.
And I haven't read a whole lot of it. I know that you could use it to see if, for example, a container fail,
Yeah.
and so the orchestrator automatically instantiates a new container and makes it, so that it keeps running.
Yeah. Thank you for the
And
follow, Ninja 7001.
I think with health checks, I could do a type of performance type thing, and if there's a certain amount of requests, I don't know if that's something that happens on the health checks, or actually the orchestrator knows about it and can deal with it, where it instantiates a new container, and then it does a load balancing between them.
Yeah.
Uh, I know Cianhorn's working with Kubernetes, and so maybe that's something that I'm gonna check out, and maybe they has in there something that does that. So uh, I'm not sure yet how to deal with it.
Yeah.
But those are probably two ways to go about it.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm going to give you
and I
I'm going to give you an
Yeah, go ahead.
embarrassing tale. The first time I came up against that challenge of how do I do something outside of the system, um, when the system's going slow, right? You know what my first solution was? To use the system that was going slow to tell me that the system was going slow.
Oh,
And it took me implementing it to realize how stupid what I was doing was. But I'm like, the system's running slow, and I'm going to use the system that's running slow to tell me that the system's running slow. Something's not going to
well,
work here.
I mean, it's gonna slowly tell you it's going slow, but
Yeah,
yeah.
3 hours later, the system's running slow. Yeah, thanks. Thank you for the follow,
Yeah,
Keanu Rev. Yeah, so
yeah, but I'm thinking that maybe the most likely scenario will be in the orchestrator. It will probably have a load balancer somewhere in there that knows how many requests are coming in,
yeah,
and maybe that gets combined with a health check to know how fast it's going. Right? I
right.
don't know.
Do you consider that a critical problem to solve right now, or do you consider that you can deal with that when that problem comes around?
It's something that I think I can deal when it comes around, but
Right.
hopefully I'm gonna read enough right now
Yeah.
that I can have somewhat a design in place, right?
Yeah.
So that when it does needs to happen, I'm not gonna have to re-implement the whole thing.
Yeah.
Uh, so I know that the way Docker containers work, how, for example, the service fabric, I know that they have things in there for that scale out.
Right.
How they work, I'm not sure because I've never done it, but I've heard of it. So,
Yeah.
um, hopefully it's something that is very straightforward. I mean, uh, the part that I would be afraid of is that it scales indefinitely, and then it's like, oh well, no, I have 1,000 instances of the service,
I
and
have
I'm like,
1,000 instances,
okay,
and I'm now poor.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
But in reality, probably when I start off, I'm not gonna have enough clients to like stress the system,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that does come
and,
around on your ability, the necessity to build some tools to give you some idea of it might not be an exact idea, but the tooling you're building, the structure you're building to try and test the system will give you an idea of just how much load would go through there and how much time you're going to have before you have to worry about that.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the things I'm trying to see if a solution might even come in from those tests, where eventually when I have when I'm further along the project, where I actually have a deployment for testing, right?
Yeah.
With then I can, let loose a bunch of bots and start
Yeah.
sending orders.
Yeah.
So, okay, so really give it a pool of nodes, servers, and we'll watch CPU, RAM, HC. All right, so it looks like Kubernetes actually has
Some
a
of what you
way
have to.
to tell, when a container is overused. Oh, that's interesting. I'll
You'll
have
have
to
an
look into
expert in Mr. Anhorn by the time you're done.
it. I'm well. Eventually, I mean, this is actually it's kind of the first time that I'm using Docker for this kind of thing.
Right.
I've looked at the whole eShop on containers implementation back when it first came out.
Right.
It was interesting. It's right in the way the ones that they have right now. It's very different. It has a lot of more depth to it. Uh, but it's interesting. But I've never, again, because of the way of the stuff that I've worked before, I've never actually had to build something in this way,
Right.
where you have services and they have to scale
Yeah.
uh, eventually.
Yeah.
So hopefully this is going to be like the new standard for me.
Yeah. Nice.
um, I'm thinking also that using a service bus is going to help with that scaling.
Yes. Definitely.
Because I mean, maybe not at the store side of things, but if I might actually decide to have the webhooks communicate with the API, with the orders API
Right.
through a service bus too.
Yeah.
And that way, what could happen is that the order API could have background services, right? And they have web jobs. And
Yeah.
maybe those are the ones that scale. And
Right.
maybe I'll just say, hey, the orchestrator says, oh, do you have 20 orders? Well, let's spin off 3 consumers to
Well,
manage those.
there's another aspect of the it's not just so with the service bus, you're not just talking about the scalability, you're talking about the resilience and
Oh
the
yeah.
recoverability as well of some of those things. So if the messages don't get through, are they lost? No, they're not. And that's kind of why I was going before to ask about the timeline of things. Right now, you've got this asynchronous process, or this synchronous process, essentially a synchronous process, that if one piece isn't there, then basically it's a nope, quit, let's get out.
Well,
You could use that service bus and the retries, etc., to deal with that happening.
yes, yes, I could deal with a certain amount of asynchronousy, but the reality is in this particular uh domain, let's call
Yeah,
it a domain because that's
well, it
what
is a
it is.
domain. It is.
In this domain,
Yeah.
I don't want to persist. I don't want to be that kind of resilient.
Right.
I want it to fail
Gotcha.
because you have a customer that placed the order. It's not Amazon where eventually you'll get it mailed to you, right?
Yeah,
No, this is
your sandwich will
something.
be there next week.
Yep, yeah, exactly. No, this is something that has to happen
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And so maybe having it that is synchronous, it's actually part of the design
Right.
in this case, right?
Yeah.
Because you want it to have a response now, not that maybe you know We're not selling Xbox 360 or what is it? Xbox Series X.
Series X, yeah. Well, nobody's selling Xbox Series X
Yep,
right now.
yep. That's right.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Eventually, I'll
But
get one. Yeah.
eventually, no. But
Yeah.
it's in this case, it's like we want to fail fast.
Yeah.
If we were selling, consumer products,
Right.
maybe I could decide, no, we can be resilient and I can store the order,
Yeah.
right? Maybe the front end worked and it got to the order, but shipping is not working.
Yeah.
But that could happen, and I could fail there,
Right.
and maybe it comes up 30 minutes afterwards and the order gets processed and whatever.
Mhm.
But in this case, we don't have the luxury. We want to
Right.
fail because the customer wants to know right away, is my food coming in?
Gotcha.
Did it get there?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Nice.
it might actually be even harder because everybody out there and their sister documents how to do asynchronous systems, right? That is very well documented. But when you fail fast,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's kind of the pattern is to introduce this. Okay, well, I've made a request. Okay, the reality is this eventual consistency happens where I make the request and if I have to wait, then I'm blocking and I can't deal with anything else, right? So I'm a single blocking process for that thing. So if 1,000 orders come in, your web API is going to take 1,000
You you're right, and I didn't think about that
block
one.
requests.
Yep,
So
I didn't. I didn't think that through, huh?
so now your API has to scale, right? So your API is going to artificially scale because 1,000 orders came in. You've got now 1,000 blocking requests essentially. Now, and eventually they'll complete, and it could be
Yeah,
milliseconds. But for every
and
one that comes in, that time might get a bit longer.
yeah, and I don't actually. In that case, I might not. I don't actually want to scale
Mm-hmm.
right away because it's
No,
not really something. It's
yeah,
it's it's the design.
yeah,
That's a good point, and there's a very good reason to actually take that out and move it, do it differently.
yeah. I mean, essentially, and this is the thing, right? When you order something from a website, and you can tell the difference in experience between whether you're getting an immediate feedback or whether you're getting told, yeah, we've got this in stock, or you can oftentimes tell from the experience through going through the ordering process if it's truly real time or not. I've had emails from Amazon shortly after and said, sorry, this order was cancelled, etc. Because what they've done is they've said, okay, well, we can make the order, and what we'll do is we'll hand you off and we'll make the decision to tell you that the order is completed. But then when the inventory system or the billing system, whatever comes through, it says, oh no, actually you can't have this. Right, and it could be a second. I could get the email before I've even closed the page down, right? But if it takes longer to process, then I've got the experience. I've got the experience they intended for me. In this instance, essentially what you're emulating is the person saying, "Okay, yes, the order's done." But if 1,000 orders come into the restaurant in the space of 5 minutes, or depending on how you're scaling this as well, because if you're putting one system in place to many different POSs, many different restaurants, your
Yeah,
API is a bottleneck in that process. So it's realistic that 1,000 orders can come through, and each one
yeah,
of those API endpoints, yeah,
and that is something interesting because even with having a service bus, because
mm-hmm.
if you look at how I did it here on the let me open it in
Yeah,
the process right here, this is an await and still a
yeah,
blocking process,
yeah,
even though it's doing something. It's still a blocking thing,
yeah,
even though it's going through a service bus.
yeah. Now that'll
So
free up some
that's a very
resources, but ASP.NET will handle that a little bit better. But it won't. It's not perfect. It's still going to take a resource.
yeah, it's an interesting thing. I didn't think of it right now, but that's something that I might might say, well, it's not the API that has to do this. Maybe I actually queue up things and have service workers on the back.
Right.
Like I don't know. That's a very interesting thing. I might have to, but reality is that I might have to actually have something running to see where that actually happens, and see how it behaves.
So,
Because
again, those tools to test the system can also indicate to you at what point you need to start concerning yourself with the reality of the more asynchronous method of doing this, which is you send the request to submit the order. You're done.
yeah,
You're complete.
and he might another thing, it might end up that I might have to instance part of the system depending on the clients.
Yeah.
Because then maybe I might have to instance different webhook endpoints. Like
Yes.
that container. This container
Yeah.
is for XY restaurant.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
or XY company. And so they can have some guarantees in that way, because it's just for you. So
Yeah.
if you have 20 stores, then well, that's what you get.
Yeah. This is why distributed computing is hard, right? There's so many different moving components, and once you get to microservices, it doesn't get easier. Microservices don't make monolithic systems simpler; they make them actually more complicated, but on an individual level more understandable and more specific to task, which means they can be distributed differently. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean the fact that they're small, because they're very specific parts of the domain, it's good, because it's this only this part of the system, and
yeah,
you know what goes in there. It's not
yeah,
mixed up with other. I have a branch here that I'm adding identity to this,
right, yes,
because I'm thinking that before the clients at the store connect to the service bus, right?
yeah,
They'll have to authenticate,
yeah,
maybe using client credentials, right? And
right,
they might get a claim from the system saying,
right,
well, yes, you are enabled, you are active,
mm-hmm.
and this is the URL to connect to the service bus, right?
Yeah,
So that way, eventually, if I have a client that is no longer gonna be my client,
mm-hmm.
I can disable their systems.
Yes,
So,
yeah,
but the identity part is just that. It's just the identity part.
yeah,
The order part is just the order part. And eventually, maybe payments or billing or things like that. That
yeah,
they are very specific parts of the system.
yeah. So while we're talking about that, and this might be a little premature because we've still got other things to go through, right? We're not finished by any stretch of the imagination. But what's the MVP look like for this? For you, how do you validate the decisions you've made so far?
Well, in the reality for me right now is that an MVP is actually processing a full order, right? An end to end,
Yeah.
without all the extra systems. I might not even consider the identity part for part of the MVP,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because I might actually just have one client for initial testing. I mean, this is even with the system. I'm hoping that eventually it's just gonna be that whoever needs this kind of integration, they just rent. They have a subscription to the
Yeah.
service, uh, and they just put their parts in their own infrastructure
Mm-hmm.
that make it work.
Yeah.
But it might be that I don't sell it that way. It might be that
Right.
I sell it per client and say, you want this system here for your 10 stores.
Mm-hmm.
We set up an Azure for you, and we
Right.
put the system running, and I might license it
Yeah.
on a yearly basis, right?
Yeah. Subscription is the best way.
So I mean, I might not even have to worry eventually about real scale because maybe I'm licensing the whole system for each particular user.
Right.
So
Okay.
for me, an MVP, like I said, it's I can place an order in Uber.
Yeah.
I can make that order shaped the way I want it.
Right.
And I can move it all the way through to a specific store that will handle it. And
Gotcha.
that's my MVP.
Okay.
The dashboard, identity, those are things that I would add afterwards to maybe get it so that it's a service that I can have a subscription base
Right.
service.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So, I do apologize if I keep distracting you from actually showing the components.
No.
These are great. It's a great question. You know.
I mean, it's what I was hoping.
Yeah.
Ask me what I think, and you tell me what you think
Yeah.
about the same, those answers.
Yeah.
Because you might have opinions, and like for example, I wouldn't think of how of this particular code, for example, being a
Right.
bottleneck.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, oh well, yeah, I'm placing the order, but
You
you're
need that
placing the
synchronicity.
order, but you forget that this is actually stopping for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a multi-threaded system, but threads are finite.
Yes.
That's a finite resource.
Yeah.
And they run out.
Yep.
That could be an interesting thing because that could be a metric that makes it so that it scales. It auto scales based on how much of the thread pool you have used.
Yep. Hi, Jada developer. Yeah, we're looking through Junicus's distributed ordering system, basically creating a way of consuming APIs such as Ubereats, etc., and translating them down and being able to feed them into restaurants, POS systems, and we're just going through the code and through the pieces. So if you have any questions, and anybody who's joined us, if you have any questions or thoughts or just want us to look at specific things, feel free to ask. There's no wrong questions. This is a general. I'm terming it Project Spotlight / Q&A this time, but the entire this stream is dedicated to this. So, yeah. Okay, so where do we want to go next?
I think that I mean we could. I'm thinking that we could actually just run it and see what we have right now.
Okay.
So
I want to do the Docker Compose.
Yeah, try. Well, let's hope we actually didn't try it before, but let's hope it actually works.
It's fine. I trust you.
I mean, in theory, it should work. I mean, that's what the whole purpose of Docker is. So hopefully, it works.
What is the worst that could possibly happen? Let's run it from here. So Docker Compose pup -d. Actually, we don't need to d it there. We should run it like that. We can see the messages coming out. So this Docker Compose file will bring up the APIs, and we did take a look at this before. It will bring up the order system. It will bring up the webhooks, and it will bring up the RabbitMQ system and for MassTransit to work with.
Did you run a build before?
No, I didn't run the build, did I? So it's the first time. I should have run the build. You said it'll take a while, so and I never did it because we got distracted with
well, actually, it seems like it's building it, so
yeah,
great. I mean, yeah. I was like I thought he might actually try to get the the containers from the registry and not actually build them. I'm like, would that work?
Well, don't forget I've got Rabbit.
It's actually going to work.
I've got RabbitMQ on here already because of the other day. So we're pretty good anyway. So
we'll probably actually.
There you go.
It might actually give it a. Oh, it's running. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so if you go to port 8081 in the web browser,
Asian Coder asks, what's in the ordering client project? Is it HTTP or HTTPS?
ordering client project. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
there you go.
That particular project it's actually like an HTTP client. It's HTTP because
Yeah.
yeah. So the ordering client is a NuGet. Hopefully, I'll get a NuGet. That actually doesn't make a NuGet right now, but it's basically an HTTP client. It's a typed HTTP client, right? And what that means is that if I have a service and I'm taking the it, I'm actually all the codes, all the programs that I've been writing recently, I've been heavily using the iHost. For consoles, I'm using the generic host, and ASP.NET, of course, uses the web host.
Mhm.
And you do a services dot add something, and they have their DI and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's this service, this library. What it does is it gives you a way to register the client. It's a type client that talks to my API.
Right.
And right now, there's no authentication or
Mhm.
security or any of that stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
so anybody that gets that client could potentially talk to my API.
Yeah. So if,
uh, it'll also have the models that the API uses.
yeah.
So you have the local copy it, and you don't have to build a client from the Swagger API, the Open API documents.
Hmm.
Um, and for example, it might need some contracts, right?
Right.
Uh, so those could sit there too.
Yeah.
Uh, so that, for example, a
I've
client.
quite commonly created libraries like this to help. You know, if you've got an API, you've got two options. You can either say, okay, well, there's Swagger docs like this, which is where we're going next, or you can build the client and distribute the client DLL so people can interact with your project through clean APIs rather than
Yeah,
having to make the HTTP requests
and
themselves.
and somebody might actually say, "Oh, I need to make a website," and might say, "Yeah, but my client is TypeScript, you know."
Mm-hmm.
And so they might actually generate clients from the Swagger docs, from the
Yeah.
API docs, and so that's why I have them there, anyways. And of course, I can test the things easily.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to test the API with Swagger than with Postman.
Yes.
Because thing changes automatically.
Yeah.
And um yeah, but this is a client, and the thing is that what I'm thinking of how I implement clients libraries like this is that with a single add this, I mean, like in this case it's like add Hermes orders client,
Yeah.
right? It registers all the things that it needs. If it
Right.
needs a configuration, settings,
Mm-hmm.
like well, you were using on Tuesday, you were doing the I options things, right? So
Yes.
I can register configurations like that, and of
Right.
course, it's gonna fail if I don't have the app settings.json and it has the
Mm-hmm.
entry in the JSON,
Right.
but it's already registered, and so if I somewhere else I need to know what the base URL of the or the orders API is
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason.
Right.
Uh, that is something that I have in these settings,
Okay.
right? Uh, I I can register, of course, the HTTP client, but even if the client requires parsers, right, so that you can turn JSON from one string to an actual object tree, a
Right.
model tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can register those too.
Right.
And who knows, I might even register infrastructure things, like for example, I might have a GDPR client, and I could add things and give you options that work with the API,
Yeah.
but it's just you just need to just say services
Just use
data
log.
add something,
Right.
and everything is registered.
Yeah. Everything's cleaner. Yeah.
So
Cool.
I have one. I did that one for my own ordering client service,
Yeah.
and I'm doing one for the Ubereats service because they do have their own APIs,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah, I kind of clicked through to that before as well with the Uber Eats thing, the Uber Eats client you've got here, and you have the Uber Eats client in a similar vein where you're creating the wrappers around the HTTP requests, etc.
yep.
Yep.
All right. So
Okay.
what was I gonna say? Um, so okay. So you have the you saw the Swagger documents, right?
Yep.
And if you go into port 15672. HTTP, of course, because that's the whole Docker doesn't. I didn't do any of the certificates,
Okay.
and so everything is HTTP.
Okay. So what port
You
was it?
should see 15672. That should
Oh,
be
it's
the
RabbitMQ.
yeah, it's the RabbitMQ.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Guest.
yeah. Guess.
I remember that part.
That's and with that you should see the exchange where the order API connected to the system. It should be able to. If you see the channels, you see the that IP. Basically, it's the Docker IP of the
Right.
orders API.
Gotcha.
So now, I don't know. You have the other solution open.
Yes, I have the other solution. Hermes clients.
That one has the clients, and I don't know if
Okay.
you want to run them through. Run them individually to get two different consoles. Well, yeah, I guess you would get two different consoles even if you do the multi-run,
Yeah.
the multi-debug thing.
Yeah. You haven't set these up with any Docker files or anything, right? So
No, those don't have the Docker files.
yeah.
Yeah,
So let's set start projects.
that's the
Start.
one. Yeah, I wanted to make the fake clients. I wanted to test also something. I did it separately because I have a machine in my house. I have a Linux machine that I made the other
Right.
day,
Nice.
and I was actually running the clients on the Linux machine,
Yeah.
talking to my Windows machine with the Docker things, right?
Yeah.
And I could actually get the orders there too.
So how good did you how good
that
did you
felt
how good did you feel the first time you saw a message go through after wiring it all together?
That felt amazing. It's like I said, I was trying to do the same thing with Signal. I was like, man, I know I can get it to work, and because again, like the API is not really synchronous. I could answer on a different a different call. I could answer to the Uber Eats API, but having it the way it works right now, it works great.
Yeah.
And before we continue, I'm going to take another break.
Yep. No worries.
All right.
Okay. I'm going to mute my microphone in Discord. There's a whole lot of things to take in here. This is a getting started system, right? These are the components that make up this system, and this is just one. Right now, this is one endpoint, and several pieces of the integration. We're not finished. We've got more to come. But if you have any questions, we've obviously answered some. I'm trying to do my best to ask questions that I'm thinking of. But yeah, this is impressive stuff, and this is not easy to get working. And the reason I asked the question about how did you feel the first time you saw a message go through is when you're doing these sorts of systems, it's a long time between getting started and when you see the first thing come through. when you're trying to really build it out and you're trying to architect it the way that Junicus is architecting it here, there's some very clean lines here. The code is nice and organized and understandable, and it's still, even for me the other day when we got the sample working on Tuesday, I'll be honest, I was happy. I really did feel very successful, even though we only got to the edges of the MassTransit component. It's there's a sense of achievement in getting that far.
All right, I'm back.
Okay, so let's unmute that one. Come back. I was just saying that the reason I asked about the sense of achievement is because there's a long time between putting the pieces in place and getting the actual end-to-end component working. And I the other day on Tuesday, I felt that sense of, yes, it's working. when I got it, I've done these things before. It's not like it's new necessarily, but it's still such satisfaction when you get just the simplest of things to work, because it means all the pieces are coming together. And
especially when at that point I still didn't know how it would work. Right?
Yeah,
I'm like, I wanted to do this with SignalR. I know it can be done, but it requires a lot of code.
Yep.
And then you said I'll use the service bus. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know that. Let's see how it works.
Ancient Coder says you're a bit quiet right now, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry. My speakers. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just Ancient Coder says you're a bit quiet on stream. I haven't changed anything on stream.
Sorry, the microphone is pointing in a different direction.
Yeah, that'll do it.
All right. So I didn't know if it. And you mentioned service bus. I'm like, all right. MassTransit. I'm like, I've never used that, so I don't know how it works. And then when I started looking for RabbitMQ, and there's like, oh, you have to install Erlang, and you have to install this, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then of course it's like, oh, you can use Docker. I was like, that's the way to go.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I haven't used MassTransit in a production application. I've only tinkered with MassTransit years ago, and back then MSMQ was the flavor, because I was using NService Bus, and an NService Bus configuration was just so baffling. Getting started with the MassTransit documentation the other day, I was in the same situation. I saw Docker for RabbitMQ, and I'm like, nice, I don't have to install Rabbit on my machine anymore. I don't have to risk damaging anything or breaking configuration. I can just install it, and off to the races we go.
And I've actually done that before, because I've looked at RabbitMQ before. I've never actually used it. And I actually remember going through that effort of installing the whole thing.
Yeah.
Have it run as a service to actually never use it. And it's like, it's something that is running there forever in my computer, because I was gonna try it. But this way, it's a container. It's like, I turn it on, I turn it off.
Yeah,
I'm done with it. I don't need it. It takes some space, but it's not taking resources because it's not running.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
So since you're running the Docker Compose, if you run the consumers, the fake store consumers things.
So we're gonna start both fake consumer 1 and fake store consumer 2 up at the same time.
Yeah, and you should get 2 different windows.
Yep.
And you'll see both in the Docker container log.
Yeah.
They should connect if everything is working correctly, because it's localhost. You see it right there. It did. And they don't show anything right now. But if you go into the Swagger doc and you try to place an order,
right?
You can just leave it. You can just leave the whole thing the same. Just put Oh yeah. Before actually placing the order, you can
Yep.
actually check the queue it should be created in the RabbitMQ
Okay.
management.
So now we
So
have the queues for the two.
and you'll have a queue 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yep. And
and
5, 6, 7,
another
8.
queue. And because it's hard, it's difficult.
Naming is
So
hard. Yep.
if you put one of those codes in the Swagger documents, and the
Okay.
part where it says store code, I think it was what I called it.
Store code 1, 2, 3, 4.
You put it there, and the rest of it you leave it like that because it's actually not going to send it anywhere.
So try it. I'm going to hit try it out in here. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and nothing else matters because all we're doing is trying to prove that we're posting to the API, etc. So we hit execute, and then there's test order.
And
There's
yeah,
also messages. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 5, 6, 7, 8. This is store 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yep.
So
and you wouldn't. It would. I mean, it's not much right now, but imagine this is basically it. I mean, we can have multiple of these running in each store, and they consume orders.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the actual code for injecting the order and all that, that's what it needs right now. It's the next part that I'm going to write. But I mean, basically it's working. It's working the way it's almost MVP actually, if you want to see it that way. Because the only thing that I need is, and I even have it because the webhooks API actually has that client that I was describing to Ancient before, where it can talk to the orders API.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I'm actually very close, and that's why I wanted to see it because it's super close right now.
Yeah. So this is essentially the Ubereats component would actually be making this request.
Well, the webhooks.
Yeah, the webhooks endpoint, the webhooks API, or the integration with the how what's the right term? One is the right term. Marketplace, right? Ubereats in this specific instance would, it would make this request. Then this would be our store. These would be our actual restaurant 1, restaurant 2, whatever, or chain 1, restaurant 2.
Okay. Ancient. Yeah, of course. That's one of the benefits that have made it easy for me to figure things out. It's because I've been working for restaurants and for 18 years now. So
you have a great depth of knowledge in that domain.
Yeah, I know, and on those, out of those 18 years, most of them I've been working with the point of sale, and this is what I've been doing all this time. So it helps. It definitely helps that you know the domain, and so you can figure out what it is that you need.
Yes. Yeah, it's hard to go and write software for a domain you don't understand. My typical approach to writing software is because of having to explore domains, of having to try and solve problems without understanding them fully. Finding a domain expert is a must if you want to proceed to a good level, and you're a domain expert enough to be able to do the component pieces here.
Yeah, if anything, I might actually be biased.
Well, that's the other. So I had another note about I'm trying to ask pertinent questions, but how do you? So I did kind of mention it before about how to validate the decisions, but do you have, you obviously have contacts and people you can talk to help validate? Oh, that's not the way we're going to do that. That's the way we do that. Right.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, 18 years is a long time without making contacts.
And knowing resellers and people that can actually put a lab together and actually test this. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean,
there's something still that I mean, for a real test might actually involve contacting some people in the Ubereats
Right.
side of things, so
Yeah.
that I can set up a fake store for me, so I can
Hmm.
actually place an order there and
Yeah.
watch it go through the system the whole way.
Yeah. Now,
What?
does does a company like Uber Eats in any so obviously we mentioned earlier on that there is um, the devices that you get put into the stores. Is there
Uh-huh.
anything in Uber Eats or DoorDash's requirements to say you have to use this device? I mean, they're offering an API, so I assume this is what they intend. They want you to integrate with them so that it's easier for them to offload.
Yes. And you'd be surprised. There are a bunch of people doing this kind of thing right now,
Right.
specifically because of that. Everybody, with the whole COVID thing, COVID,
Yeah.
uh, it it uh it made a demand for this kind of thing.
I mean,
And
I can easily say we've spent many thousands of dollars on ordering out in the past 7 months.
I
Um,
haven't cooked in a month, so
yeah,
what
we
can I
we
say?
we've ordered out. I mean, it's a little bit easier here. I mean, we've spent a lot of money ordering out, and these companies have made some good money in a way that we hadn't done previously. If I used DoorDash, it was maybe once every 2 to 3 months previously, and now if it's 3 times a week, it's kind of we're not using it very frequently this week, right? So we do a lot more
Yeah,
ordering out.
and one of the reasons I think that for me in particular, this has demand.
Hmm.
Here in Puerto Rico, there are very few uh, services that do this.
Yeah,
The only ones that come from the states that they're actually known, you know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah,
It's Uber Eats and DoorDash.
right.
Those are the two known ones.
Yeah.
The rest of them are local people. They before Uber Eats came to the business here,
Hmm.
uh, they were on, and they cover a little section of the island,
Right.
but none of them have APIs like this. And
No.
so, uh, seeing that this can be done might actually push them to make those APIs.
Yeah.
Uh, Definitely, there's nobody sells this kind of thing locally.
Right.
Uh, for example, our implementation, the ones that I actually doing for my company,
Hmm.
they come from Chile.
Right.
So the developers are down in Chile.
Right.
There's developers in Mexico, and we have to depend on them because uh, nobody sells that kind of thing here.
Huh.
And the few companies that actually sell it as a service, and because there are people that sell it as a service
Yeah.
already, uh, w- it's fun, but Puerto Rico, it's viewed as international for many businesses.
Right.
Uh, so in the rates that we the for usage and things
Right.
like that, they're a bit skewed because supposedly we're international,
Got you.
and so I don't know, somebody making it something local. I'm pretty sure that
Hmm.
it could be it's sold,
So,
and I could definitely undersell the competition
right. So do you think
have it.
if you had enough traction with this project, you could actually potentially lower the rates to the end user because you're able to, you know, hey,
Yeah, I mean,
I can improve their uptake of your service, you know.
if it well, that's the thing. Uber Eats doesn't charge you for using their APIs.
Right.
They don't actually charge you for using the tablet either. Their
Right.
trick is in their money comes in from two different places.
Mhm.
From the clients, they charge the client to get the delivered
Yeah.
uh, that delivery fee and service fee.
Yeah.
They're not actual. If people think that it's for paying the drivers, but it's
No.
not. It's for paying their infrastructure.
Yeah.
And the part that goes to the driver is the tip, and you can leave the tip whatever you want. But the delivery thing is for their infrastructure. They
Right.
do get paid, they actually get paid a salary too. But
Yeah.
um, so they get money from that, and they get money for a certain percentage from the order from the restaurants.
Right.
But for using their APIs like this, it's free, and they so far what I've heard is that they prefer it.
Right.
Or they wouldn't, even though like you saw that their APIs are still not fully fully finished.
Yeah.
Uh, the so far the persons that I've seen, they're very uh interested in having this kind of things, and having clients do it with APIs,
Right.
because like for example, the customer having to deal with customer issues where the order is not correct because the store didn't actually input the order correctly, things like that.
Mhm.
Or the it the store turns off the tablet early,
Right.
right? and
Yeah.
and so even though mom and pops places, the owner is the one that manages it,
Mhm.
so if they turn it off, it's their decision.
Right.
But other certain companies, the managers start turning it off. They they're not, they're doing things that they shouldn't.
Right.
And so with this kind of APIs, you get away from that. That you actually have the orders come in, because
Right.
the tablet is there for information only.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, they can't. The restaurant themselves, if the owner of the restaurant or the person has asked for the API to be the system to be installed, says, "Okay, I want the system installed." How do you deal with the restaurant becoming busy and the kitchen being backed up? Then, can you still relay that information?
For
Like
for
I mean, my primary experience is DoorDash. I've used Grubhub a little bit, and Slice is another one for pizza places here.
no, sorry, but the only ones in here are DoorDash and Ubereats,
Yeah,
and DoorDash came in recently, so I've never used them.
no joke.
Uh,
On my phone, I've got Slice, Chow Now, Menufy, DoorDash, Grubhub. What else? I haven't. Uber Eats is probably the one I don't have right this second on my phone, but I do have a ton of these applications. They're all very similar. They're all order processing systems and delivery systems, etc. I mean, of those, I think Slice, I think Chow Now is kind of a, if they do delivery, then they order, and Menufy is similar systems. If they do delivery, they'll present the menu to you. You'll order. They don't do the delivery driver stuff. But
okay.
Grubhub and DoorDash and obviously Uber Eats they handle the delivery as well. They put that out. But on Grubhub, it's very much the same. I primarily use DoorDash recently, because we were using it that much, staying in one and then paying for the Dash Pass thing, so it drops that service charge off of every single place we order from. Most places we order from, not all, depending on, I assume, how they configure things. But there's how do you, because it tells me that the driver's 15 minutes away, the driver's picking it up.
Well,
How do you still
you
deal
don't
with?
you don't deal with that.
Right. Yeah. True. Yeah.
I, I
You're
don't
doing
I
the
don't
ordering.
actually
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't actually have to. It's funny, but I don't actually have to deal with it. Not entirely.
Yeah.
Here's how it works. When I get the order, and you saw that in their API thing, their sequence diagram.
Yeah.
when I accept the order,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that telling the system, hey, yeah, they're preparing the order.
Yeah.
Part of the thing that I sent with that payload
Yeah.
is a driver estimated time.
Right.
So it it would really depend on the point of sale that you have.
Right.
Um, um, because depending on the point of sale, the point of sale might give you, hey, it's gonna take 20 minutes to make
Yeah.
this order, or it's gonna
Right.
take half an hour,
Yeah.
and then you can give that quote back to the system, and they'll they'll send the driver automatically.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
you still have the because you technically can keep using the tablet.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell it if it's an order that um I don't know, it might be uh ice cream.
Right.
Believe it or not, people ask for just ice cream. Um,
We've ordered ice cream.
well, there you go. And so for example, that kind of thing, you don't, let's say a dessert, we
Mm-hmm.
sell a cake. It's a molten cake. It's a
Yeah.
basically a cake with a big ball of ice cream on top.
Yeah.
That thing melts, and so
Quick.
you can't sit there 30 minutes for the driver.
Yeah.
So you have the chance to tell through the tablet. You can say, hey, I'm ready for pickup right now, and so
Right.
the driver will go and pick it up, and what
Gotcha.
have you.
Right.
But that timing thing, that the prediction and all that stuff that
Mm-hmm.
goes in the tablet,
Mm-hmm.
that's all Uber Eats or
Right.
DoorDash or whatever. That's not
Yeah.
so, the only thing that that you control is that when you accept the order, you might tell it, hey, this I'm gonna take 10 minutes to do it.
Right.
Now, the problem with that is that it depends on the point of sale,
Mm-hmm.
whether they have that timing,
Right.
whether they're connected to a kitchen, like ancient Coder said before,
Gotcha.
where they have a kitchen system that does that.
Right.
Uh, and you could potentially also update the state of some, depending on the API.
Right.
Uh, but what I've seen on that part is either I don't accept orders because of some reason, but you have to be careful with that, because if you don't accept orders a certain amount of times, they say like, oh, the store is closed automatically.
Right.
So you got to be careful with that.
Okay.
The other part of it is I might just tell it, hey, I might always give them the same quote,
Yeah.
because it's 30 minutes average
Yeah.
anyways. So
Okay.
that could be another thing. Or of course, if the system can tell me, hey, I'm gonna have X amount of orders, and that way I can uh X amount of minutes, and I can get a better quote of time for the delivery.
Right.
That can work. In the case of of these systems, I think you can set the store to be in a uh, busy mode,
Gotcha.
and
Yeah.
I think that's just letting the customers know that the orders might take longer than
Yeah.
anticipated.
We've had that a few times. Yeah.
Um, Uber
Um,
actually, for example, Uber Eats also has a thing that they do, and they do it depending on the regions.
mm-hmm.
But for example, depending on how many drivers there are, they may
Yeah.
say, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna place that order, but I'm not gonna place it right away. I
Right.
might take 5-10 minutes to see that a driver is in the area
Right.
that could handle multiple orders at the same time."
Gotcha.
Um, but those kind of time is mostly it's the third party that deals with them. I'm
Gotcha.
uh I'm not sure if I could set it up where you can do a certain amount of orders at you know at certain time buckets.
Right.
Like say, oh, I can have only 10 orders in every half hour.
Gotcha.
Uh,
No,
Not
that's the
sure if you
sort of
can
thing.
do that kind of thing.
That's the sort of thing you could definitely ask the people who would be consuming the system if I mean,
I mean, but the reality is that would depend very much on what integration you're doing.
yeah, true.
Because, I mean, if that third party delivery doesn't support anything like that, but you might
Hmm.
be stuck and say, well, that's how I have to do it.
Yeah,
Because even if you have the tablet right now, there's no way to tell it to say, oh, I can't take that order
right.
because I'm busy.
Okay,
If you do that too many times, the system will turn off the store
gotcha.
because it thinks that you're closed.
Right. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, because the graceful fail, right? Where it's like, hey,
Yeah.
you're not there, you're not there, you're not there. Okay, you're closed. Yeah, I get
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically.
Yep.
Um,
Hmm.
Now I've used other systems. So for example, I have for other stuff that we have online ordering, right? And that
Yeah.
system actually has it works. It's that you get buckets and you set up how many orders can be in a bucket, and
Yeah.
so potentially that would be because again the whole point of this microservice is that you can have different sources of orders. uh
Yeah.
if I design a website, I might say, well, I'm gonna use this design. Or if I, for example, somebody might say, you know what, I'm gonna design a new delivery company,
Right.
and I'm gonna use this for delivery to the store.
Yeah.
I don't know. That could happen. Probably not, but it could happen.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Dust, if it's still there. Normally, I'm a C# developer, and we do a lot of different things on the stream. This evening, as Ancient Coder kindly linked to, we are investigating one of our normal viewers' projects, looking through the design and discussing it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay. So we have the clients running. I've been tinkering and published another order in the background. I really like that design, that idea. So the endpoints you're receiving on just need to be the store code, and that clarifies that there's no complex. They each get their own queue. They each get
Yep.
their own sorry, not queue. Yeah, queue.
Actually, yeah, no, they get a queue.
They each get their own queue. And messages are queued to them properly, and they are the single consumer of their own. And the scale out on this end would also be facilitated by, if you had multiple stores working in the same, you could partition potentially.
Not sure if that would be a good idea because you don't want to have multiple clients for the same store
Right.
because of the fear of making the order, duplicating the order.
Yeah,
Maybe.
duplication would be a concern. I think really where I was going there, I apologize for making that a little bit less clear. If you have a chain of restaurants,
Oh yeah, no,
you'd still deploy one per store code
yeah, you would.
anyway. So you wouldn't have
Yeah,
the concept of, so if you had a chain of restaurants and they wanted to know what sort of orders were going through their systems in a day, though, right? So the individual restaurants would process them, but would you report via each restaurant, or would you distribute via chain and then store?
that's one of the things that I'm thinking of further down the line,
Right.
and I'm thinking that eventually, when this actually, if it becomes a service that you rent,
Right.
you'll have a tenant, that's the company,
Yeah.
and in that tenant you will have multiple clients. Each client will be a store,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And they'll have their own codes uh, because of reasons. Let's say it that way.
Yeah.
Normally, system like this, each store will have their own identifier.
Yeah.
Because the store number or a key.
Right.
Many oftentimes system like this, they have a licensing thing.
Right.
They give you a key. So that's how you see it on reports and things like that.
Right.
So if we get it to a point where it's a tenant thing, it's a service that you rent,
Right.
the tenant will get a report of overall orders
Right.
with identifiers, and maybe that might be how billing is done, right?
Right.
Eventually, it's like, oh, I'm billing you because your tenant that has 20 stores
Right.
actually processed 100 orders in this period.
Right. Okay.
So I might have a percentage, or it could be a percentage of the order, or it could be a flat amount,
Right.
flat fee,
Yeah.
or and that's how other people do it. By the way,
Right.
uh, but I might say, well, in order for me to undersell
Mm-hmm.
the competition, I may say, no, no, I'll have a flat fee per store, right?
Right.
And and
Okay.
and so you got 20 stores, I'll charge you a flat fee no matter how many orders you get,
Right.
and or it might be a flat fee per tenant, right? And then you can have however many stores you can get, but
Right.
that would be depend later on, and see how much it actually the infrastructure cost
Right.
comes into play.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's you probably have reporting on that way,
Mm-hmm.
but that's only depending on whether I I make it a rentable service,
Right.
like a subscription
Yeah.
based
Subscription
service.
based. Yeah. So ancient coder, basically these represent the integration to the POS. So each one of these would integrate to that store's POS. My question came from, okay, if you have a chain of, let's say these two are two Bob's Pickle Shacks or whatever you want to, and Bob owns the franchise, and he has the two restaurants, and Bob would want to see the orders going to each restaurant, but the restaurants shouldn't know necessarily, be affected by that. They just need some overall reporting. So I was just trying to identify at what level that would be done, and whether it would be, where it would get tied up. So yeah, these would be into individual integrations at the store, with the POS systems to do the orders.
Yeah, and in the case of why I say that it really depends on how you bill it,
Mm-hmm.
how it's billed.
Right.
Uh, and it's because Uber Eats has reports for that.
Right.
Your online ordering system will have reports like that. So if,
Right.
if you're renting the infrastructure, you say, oh, I'm gonna have my own Azure service, and we're gonna install this service here, and you just rent it and rent, you pay a licensing fee.
Yeah.
Eventually, if I make it, you know, profitable,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you might not care about how many orders went through the system because you already have the source of the orders
Yeah.
through all your other things,
Right.
and you have in your POS, you have how many orders entered. You can consolidate those. You can do a reconciliation of those, and it's like, well, Uber Eats tells me that 20 orders came in. The restaurant tells me that there are 20 orders.
Right.
Okay, everything worked.
Yeah.
Uh, I might still want to add reporting, but not for details on how many orders there are, but
Yeah.
the errors that come into the system.
Yeah.
And that way, if something is erroring out a lot, they
Mm-hmm.
might tell the person that's renting this, oh, hey, that Azure VM that you have,
Right.
it's not enough. You need a bigger one.
Right.
Uh, but that's something that maybe just errors will tell you.
Right.
Maybe some performance reporting, some things like that. I was looking at Grafana with a Loki. I don't know if you've seen those before.
I've
It's
heard of Grafana. I'm not entirely sure I know what it is, but Loki would. Yeah.
so Grafana it's like it's a service that you get dashboards basically, right?
Right.
But you can do queries, right? It depends on the plugins that you use.
Right.
And it's just reporting timeline reportings, right? You can do how many 200 success you have in the last 20 minutes, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, so the Grafana parts is just the dashboards and the graph that you have, and you have different sources of data.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was thinking to adding that be part of the services that Docker
Right.
Compose brings up. And the reason I was thinking of that is that they have a second part to this, which is Loki. It's made by the same company.
Yeah.
By the
Seems
way,
like it would
both
be.
of them are open source too.
Ah.
Uh, so they do have versions of them that have more features that you can actually. That's how they make their money.
Yeah.
But they have the open source version. It's free and you can set it up.
Right.
And Loki is a uh, logging system, a logging management system. So
Gotcha.
like SEQ, SEQ.
Yes. Yeah.
I
With
know
lots
that
of. Yeah.
you were playing around with it in one of your streams.
Yes. Yeah. With
But
lots of.
the problem with SEQ is that it's not free. I mean,
Yes.
but there is a free version, but it's very limiting.
Yes.
Uh, and so, but this is free,
Mm-hmm.
and you can have Serilog. You have one
Right.
of their syncs instead of sync being SEQ,
Yeah.
or they have a Loki sync. So you
Right.
can all your reports can go into there, and then you put a Grafana in front of it, and you can make graphs and reports of those logs.
Right.
And so I was thinking that this could be a nice way to measure the performance and have it
Absolutely.
be a report
Yeah.
that I could see.
Nice. Wow. um. There's a lot. There's a lot going on. Oh.
Yeah, I
New
mean,
version. Um. So, the one thing that stands out, right, for me is, and actually, I'm going to share a work anecdote today. So today I got to, over the last 2 days, I got several meetings and got to see other groups within my larger parent organization, got to see the software products they were offering. And the one thing that stood out is, these systems are oftentimes put together and they become successful. But there's some systems in there, that you think this was a solved problem, right? You think some of this was kind of, well, that kind of makes sense. Now you're talking about what you're doing here. It makes sense, right? It feels like there's already a product out there that does this part, right? Have you done any research into? I mean, you've been in the business long enough to know if there's something right there, and you just said your organization is using something similar. You just feel that you have a cleaner solution.
Mm, maybe not. I'm not maybe not thinking of whether it's cleaner or not. I'm thinking is that it's something that could potentially, I could take a slice of it
Right.
and get some of it,
Right.
and eventually we can expand on that and
Right.
make that slice a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But it's not so much that I think I can do it better
Right.
or it's more like, you know what, the pie is big enough, and
Mhm.
there's demand. I could
Right.
maybe do this and have something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, the group of products I got to see over the last couple of days, it was quite interesting because some of them are in a niche market, some of them are in a kind of a saturated market, but they are the leaders of those markets because they've gone out there and added more. They've built on these things, and one of the scary things, and obviously I can't mention anything specific, but one of the things that was kind of scary is these large scale ERPs, these large scale software developments. On that call of over, I think it was 30 engineers overall, the number of people that could actually tell you what a microservice was zero. Right? These systems are being developed at massive scales, and they are backed by databases that I can't even fathom, right? But these architectures, these technologies, you look at a piece of software and see, oh, I can take a piece of this, right? You actually might come up with a better solution, right? You might come up with a cleaner solution, and it's worth doing. It's kind of where I'm going. I'm trying to say, just because you think something's been solved, and this is general guidance, not just to you, but in terms of this is recorded content as well, it's worth looking at and analyzing what you know, and don't assume that just because there's a problem, is it a solved problem? Is it solved well? What are your options when you're looking at, okay, I want to develop this software, but who am I going up against? The previous company I worked for, they relied upon the fact that they were the biggest of what they did, and they avoided updating the software because they had such a market share, no one else could compete, and they just assumed that no one would jump in and take them, right?
That's the worst you can assume. You can't assume that,
Yeah,
because the thing is, the internet moves so fast, and
yeah,
everybody's coming up with new
yeah.
things and new ways of doing things.
Well,
And yeah.
yeah, a competitor bought them.
Well,
So they were snapped up, and that's what happens. And when you go to develop software of this magnitude, you're going to put a lot of work in, and you've already put in an incredible amount of work to do. And this is really impressive, by the way. I can visualize what you're doing. The code is nice and readable. It's well organized. It's very clear, so you can clearly work in this well. I didn't pick into the actual unit tests, because that's stuff you're going to build upon.
Yeah, no, and the only things that I brought right now, I do have more unit tests, and it's just that it's in a different project.
Yeah.
But the ones that I wanted to bring out there it's the stuff for the clients, because that's the stuff that is coming out from outside the system,
Right.
and I want to make sure that I can react to it correctly.
Right.
Once that's in my system, I'm going to eventually, of course, make other tests for specifically for the commands and the queries that I'll eventually have in the system.
Right.
But this is one of the big codes, and the other test that I have on the other system, it's that proxying thing that I did for hiding the complexity of the point of sale.
Right.
And I made it's a facade, right? It's
facade. Yeah, facade.
facade. That's the word.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I did. It's a facade, and that I have tests for too, because that's another big one. Because even though I cannot test it against a real thing,
Mhm.
I want to see that the stuff that I have
Yeah.
actually calls the right functions with the right data and
Right.
things like that.
Yeah.
Eventually, I'm gonna have to do not just a unit test, but integration test. This is the kind of
Mhm.
project that I will need to do integration tests
Yes.
because there's
Yeah.
just no way.
So sadly, it's a reality of what you're working on here. You are going. You cannot avoid integration tests because it's the only way of catching regressions. It's the only way of making sure that pieces are doing exactly what you expect them to do at any one point.
And
Yeah.
especially when you're talking to systems that you're not have zero control over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You got a lot of testing work ahead of you. That's for certain to get this to. But I mean, like I said, I really the code is really clear and understandable. You know, with just the briefest of discussions around the pieces, you know, it was easy to figure out which parts were, and that's a key. For me, if I'm looking at a code base, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Do I understand your design decisions? Like, you know, I think you said you followed the a bit of it's kind of the clean architecture and stuff, right? The design.
Yeah, I saw a bit of uh, um, Jesus, eStore and containers. That's
Yeah.
one from Microsoft.
Yeah.
There's the reference implementation,
Yeah.
and I saw I don't remember the name. I think his last name is Taylor. He has the Northwind, the new Northwind implementation. If
Okay.
you can search it, you can search about they're taking the old Northwind. Yeah, Jason Taylor, I
Jason
think
Taylor,
it's
right.
his name.
Right. They've updated Northwind.
Yeah, I think he's the one that has the a new implementation of Northwind, but with a clean architecture
Right.
and domain-driven design and all that stuff.
Okay. Nice. Cool. Wow.
And so those are two that I heavily on they pulled from their work for this layout, the way to separate the the projects.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. It's
but for example, the thing for like the commands and queries and stuff,
mhm.
those are I'm picking up from the work we did in Pet Home.
Yeah.
Home Pet.
Yeah.
How was it?
Pet home.
Pet
Pet
Home.
home. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That was.
that work, it's like yeah, definitely mediator works, and
Mhm.
uh, I like the fluent validations. I think I got those from the Northwind Traders
Okay.
repo,
Yeah.
uh, and it clicks. It's like yeah, definitely. There's a pipeline, and before this even gets handled, it gets verified.
Yeah.
So
I like the structure. It's there's definitely some
that I also use, for example, Automapper. Uh, I love Automapper. You don't have to do all that stuff that all that code for copying from one model to the other. No, you
yeah.
just let me show you a little highlight of that. Uh, I have that register in let's see the orders application. There's in the common folder. I have a mapping section.
Right.
So I don't know if
There you
you.
go. Yeah. I jump back on you.
So this is an
Yeah.
interesting
Sorry.
thing.
Yep.
Sorry, don't worry. This is an interesting one because I'm taking. I don't know where I got this from, but it's uh, it's using the new features of C Sharp where an interface actually has an implementation. It has a default implementation, so I think this came out in. But
It's a newer
this is the
feature.
thing.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
feature that came in from uh yeah, definitely makes Automapper works great.
Yeah.
So anyways, this feature came in from C Sharp 8.
Yeah.
So basically it's just create mapper, and it runs this code,
Right.
and just searches for all the models that are in the assembly.
Right.
And because all my models are in the, I tend to put them in the application assembly.
Yeah.
Um, they they implement the I mapped from,
Right.
and basically I can map models to DTOs or entities to DTOs, or I can do DTOs to view models, and it's super easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I cringed when you showed the interface with implementation. I'm still not used to seeing it, and I'm still not a big fan of putting implementation in an interface. But I understand why. But it's like, it's an interface, and now we're telling people you can actually put code in the interface. Yeah.
I know it feels weird. I know,
Yeah.
but it I see where the idea come
Hmm.
from. I mean, what problem is solved. It's
Yeah.
basically it's versioning of the interfaces, right?
Yeah.
I have an interface that I have B1 right now.
Hmm.
When I go for B2, I don't want to break all the classes that inherit from that interface,
Yeah.
or well, not inherit, but they implement that interface.
Yeah.
So for new methods, I'll give them a base implementation that
Yeah.
basically doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
in theory, right? Well, they might actually do something,
Yeah.
but
I don't
that
know.
way,
I kind of prefer the interface demanding that I do something with it, because if I change the interface, then I've changed the interface, right? So, but I see the benefits. I see the way that people have used it so far. I just think it's one of those things that's rife for abuse.
I I I I I get you, but then from the code that I've seen on this POS thing,
Yeah.
um, remember I told you they come from a COM interface.
Yeah.
See, they have 10 interfaces, so they
Yeah.
go I I function repo 1, I function repo 2, and they
Yes.
have 10 different versions of it.
Yeah.
And so I'd see how maybe it could simplify some things. I don't know, but
Yeah.
maybe it's not for everyone.
Yeah. I'll.
Uh, there's
Yeah.
another interface here that it's just the interface, but right now, uh, the implementation of this one is actually not an infrastructure thing, although it could be. But it's I have it at the actual application.
Right.
Uh, and the idea of this one is so that you can uh, what is it? It's actually not. Never mind. I did actually put it on the infrastructure. Never mind. I was like, I'm looking at it. I'm like, it was there really?
Yep.
Where did I put it? Anyways, the point of that one is for doing. I have again something that I saw somewhere. I'm like, damn, that's a good idea.
Hmm.
Uh, it's audible entities, right?
Okay.
And I'm
Odd.
looking for it right now because I don't remember where I put it. Uh, I might not even be using it here, but the point of those are basically instead of your entities being just models that you put in the yeah, I don't think I actually have one here because this doesn't have a database just yet. They don't.
Right.
I'm not storing anything. I think
Yeah.
I'm thinking of another project that I have that do have databases.
Okay.
But if I do it here, I will do it there too. I will do it here too because I'm
Right.
thinking that the orders for the order API I might
Yeah.
store them, but not in a SQL database, but on a Mongo database,
Okay.
or document database,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
because it tends to be a document. It looks very much
Yeah.
like a document. It
Yeah, it
feels like a
does.
document.
Yep.
So I might store them in a NoSQL database.
Okay.
And so they the basically what it is the interface has the created by, created time. They have
Gotcha.
the modify by and modify time.
Right.
And so the container, what I did is I override
Hmm.
uh, the save function, the save method, and
Okay.
I check, is it an audible thing? It's like, oh well, if you're adding, well, set the date and
Right.
say who modify, and it uses that interface to figure out who the uses this interface to figure out who
Gotcha.
it's logged in.
Right.
And so
Okay.
I'm gonna use it in two places. I added for something, but I'm thinking of using it in the client that's logging in.
Okay.
They don't actually have a user ID,
Right.
so I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet if it fits 100%.
Hmm.
Uh, because the actual client is not a user; it's the actual application.
Right.
Um, but if I use it on the order API, I might actually have that and figure out who the client is that logged in that placed the order.
Right.
So it might be that I sorry, it might be that code that I use for the queue. That might be what the user ID is.
Okay.
Uh,
Sorry, I'm just
what
trying
else
to.
I haven't done here? I've done a few things and I have code here and there and I keep adding to it slowly. Oh, you know why I knew I added it somewhere. It's in the other it's in the other branch, the one that has the identity stuff.
Ah. Okay.
Yes,
Just missing
I'm
people.
sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's something that ties into that. Because I was thinking that I want to do a dashboard,
Right.
and I need to identify who was a user in the dashboard. And that's why I added it because I like I said I, I'm been lately. I've been doing using the same type of code in all my projects because it's really automatic for me. Like yeah, I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna add it now.
Yeah.
It's not it's not implemented, but the
Right.
interface is there already.
Well, that sort of pattern. When we're getting to those sorts of patterns, is oftentimes when developers will start to make frameworks to try and save time, and then new developers get to come onto a project and get to follow a framework, and then they never do anything different. They just
Yeah,
keep
no,
following the same patterns.
um yeah, I used it in two other applications where
Hmm.
and it works so well.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is a cool way to do it. I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah.
um,
Productive. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to show. We showed how I create the mass transit producer. Basically, I know it's not a producer, but
Hmm.
the the client that actually posts the orders.
Yeah. If you want
I don't know if you want to show. 'Cause I don't know if I have it here. I mean, I don't know. It is in the other project, so
yeah.
I don't know if you
Okay.
can follow it. It's in the client. See, show off how that works. You were working on mass transit the other day,
Right.
and there I can show you. See that where it's the handler dot
Yeah.
handle this order. This is where we could add dot something, and if you do that so that you can see it, they can see it. The pop up. There's there's how you can handle how the queue behaves,
Gotcha.
and you can have it. Was,
Okay.
I was looking before how that worked, but that you can have it like make it durable, make it use a different exchange.
So in when I was dealing with again and service bus, you said, okay, here's a name that I want to refer to this thing by, and I can either be I can either be a many to one, or a kind of a general publisher, so many things can listen, or a kind of point to point queue. This is very, the terminology here for Rabbit is what's is tripping me up a little bit. Like it says the bind queue, if false, deploys only exchange without queue. So I think learning what exchange is versus queue, or those pieces would be kind of useful for me.
Yeah, and
After going through it, yeah.
and uh, no, nah, I'd want to go through those too, because I don't know if there's a better feature,
Yeah.
a better way to do it. I I basically did the most basic sample that I saw somewhere. I was
Mhm.
like, oh my god, that is actually the same thing that I need.
Yeah.
So I implemented with my domain that I want to submit an order,
Yeah.
and actually I think it might even be the same, because I might have the sample that I saw. It might have been like an order thing too. I
Yeah.
was like, this is like exactly what I need. Here
Hmm.
it goes. And so now I just need to expand on it to
Yeah.
make it be what I need.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of different ways, and this is where you start to learn the systems you're developing with. And I think it goes to the, you can't. I have a dilemma in that I'm about to ask my team to work with new technologies, but how much do I ask them to learn beforehand when that project might not come to fruition, or how much do I ask them to go beyond what they would normally do and think outside the box and potentially learn technologies as they develop, because you can't learn everything, right? Pick the best tool for the job. Well, the best tool is kind of the one but it might not be the cleanest of implementations. So using tools that are more fit for the purpose that you might not be as comfortable with, and getting them working and then learning more about them as you go is probably a very practical way. And I kind of prefer that method, but asking a team to do that is a little bit risky in terms of their comfort levels. But I think what you'll do is you'll learn how to use MassTransit and RabbitMQ more as you go and as you grow with the system, especially if you try and implement the asynchronous processing of the orders. You'll learn more about. I don't know if MassTransit has sagas as a concept. But
I think they do have at least in the docs they talk about sagas.
right. So
Uh,
so one way we were kind of directed to think about sagas was, when you have orders, right? An order isn't necessarily. Thanks, Carly Sean. An order isn't necessarily a specific thing. It's a set of pieces of data that join together, and actions and events that make up the order. Kind of like the event source example that we kind of talked about, where multiple events make up the aggregate route. The sagas can be used for the long running processes, and you can kind of represent things happening, and so the order has stages. Well, those sagas, the order itself is begun and completed at some point. It doesn't exist as an order once it's done. The events and the actions that are performed during the lifetime of that order are the order, right? So the saga is the order, right?
okay.
There's all sorts of ways to look at those things. Like you might consider the actual order as a saga, because I receive an order request. The client, the POS tells me the order has been updated or whatever, and the saga is the coordinating component that that then has events, things it fires. But learning about those things is my point. There, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the good design. There, I'm saying it's understanding how to use the tools better now. Is
Yeah, no,
key.
especially, I mean, when I do this kind of things, I
Mm-hmm.
tend to try to learn more around it and figure out the whole thing.
Yeah,
And basically, I mean, I've used queues before because I've used uh, the Azure storage, right? And
yeah,
they have a queue there,
yeah.
and I've used it for some other projects.
Mm-hmm.
But this service bus, they makes sense
Yeah,
for taking that queue and making actual, make it you can make something bigger with it.
yeah,
And for example, I was thinking uh there was I mean, again, this is stuff it's this stuff is not anything to do with this project. But for example, at some point I was thinking that uh stuff that I could do, tools that I could do for my company, right?
yeah.
For example, a expense report type thing, uh, with the mobile, being the source,
Mm-hmm.
they can do it on the cell phone,
Yeah,
and instead of having a paper go around and sending emails or whatever, they
yeah.
might have a process where the manager authorizes, and maybe two people have to see it in
Right,
order to continue on to the next stage and things like
right.
that. And
Hmm.
it sounds like that Sagas is basically a way to
Yes.
implement something like that.
Yeah, where you gotta wait for multiple pieces to come together to actually proceed to the next step, sort of thing. It's workflow stuff, right? Those are the things that are hard to represent.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
too bad Core didn't inherit, .NET Core didn't inherit the workflow thing. It would
yeah,
have been nice
yeah,
for some stuff that I've
yeah.
that I've worked with. I've been looking for something that deals with workflows,
Right.
and this, something open source, right? Of
Yeah,
course, because but man, I haven't been able to find anything that's robust enough.
yeah. That's a hard problem to do properly. But yeah,
I don't know if you've seen it. It's still, I think it's still in beta, and they haven't released a full thing yet. But
right.
Orchard, I think it's Orchard.net.
The CMS
They
thing.
have It's a CMS thing, but they have
Right.
a workflow module,
Right.
right? Imagine that you could, yes, it's a CMS,
Mhm.
but you can have the endpoint, right, and talk to the CMS, and
Right.
they have their workflow that does the whole thing.
Hmm.
And they have a version of it that is not a CMS. It's
Right.
just for you add it, but
For
it
use.
doesn't have the view part, the
Yeah.
front end part.
Yeah.
It's
Huh.
so it's like it's the parts of the CMS, but it's headless, right? You
Headless.
you
Okay.
you do your own views,
Yeah.
and
Nice.
that could be interesting.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Um.
Oh,
So we've been going for 3.5 hours.
yep.
I think I'm gonna finish up here. Are there any questions? While we're still got Junicus on. I mean, basically, so none of this code is open source right now, right? Because
That's yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but I
no,
think that I could actually open some of it.
right?
The ordering API, the work, the even the webhooks API thing.
Yeah,
Because I don't think I have anything in there that's
proprietary
this
or yeah.
yeah, because it's
Yeah.
it's again, they have that little yellow thing, the yellow box there, but
Hmm.
you can search it in Google and get to it. So
Yeah. Um,
uh
I mean,
I don't know.
I wasn't prompting to make it open source. I'm just saying if anybody wants to see anything or learn anything from this, then obviously we did this. We did the bit on Tuesday as well, so we do have some code that I can share with regard to MassTransit and some of the distributed stuff. But obviously Junicus's design here is way cleaner. But what I'll do is I'll put the links to the projects that we talked about. We talked about obviously the clean eWeb on containers project and some of the clean code stuff, and I can put the links in that because I will upload this entire stream to YouTube because this isn't just a part I can cut out. This was intentionally the entire stream, but yeah. We'll do this again though, if you'd be interested.
Yeah, no. If we get farther along with the project and we have, a part 2 of a progress report.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not like we don't chat in stream and in Discord and stuff, but yeah, I think this is kind of fun stuff to cover. People seeing applications developed, and the challenges and things. Hopefully I'm doing a pretty good job of asking pertinent questions, and it helps. But yeah, okay. Well, we'll finish up here, and we will. It's a day ending with Y, therefore it's a callow day. No thought there. Everyone knows what to do at this point, I would hope. Junicus, thank you very much. Thank you for claiming channel points. I appreciate it.
No problem.
And this has been a lot of fun. And I don't think I've typed this little in any stream, so this was fantastic. I just had to sit here for 3 hours and look at cool technology, and like I didn't have to do anything. It's awesome.
Hey, you know what you can do if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you can put a client in front of it. You can bet if I do open source the ordering part and things, it could be fun to. I mean, because you're looking for new mobile projects, right? So you could, in theory, try to make a white label app. Restaurant, burger house, and
there you go.
And hey, this is all the APIs that you could use.
Oh, we just got a raid.
Oh. The
Raiders.
timing.
The timing. Welcome, Raiders. It happens. It happens. I'll have to give it a minute.
Yeah. So, but I was thinking that those are things that there are a few projects that you could put in front of this that could be interesting. Like there's a website you could make, and I'm thinking of a PWA type of project that you can have the UI stuff sit in the phone or a desktop, and there's other services that you can add, like maybe a menu service or even a payment gateway service. And what they talk to is the ordering API.
Nice. Kid Queb, thank you very much for the raid. I appreciate that. You how was your stream? Good, I hope. Welcome, Raiders. Unproductive. I'm sorry to hear that. Some streams go like that, I'm afraid. Yeah. Some days you win, some days not so much a win. But you know what? You got on the stream, and thank you very much for the raid. I appreciate it. We actually are unfortunately just finishing up ourselves, because what we've worked on tonight, and we haven't actually worked on anything overall. We've been interviewing essentially Junicus here to go through his project on an order API using MassTransit and some microservice design. So we've been going through that this evening on stream, trying to figure out how to do user presence. Well, you don't necessarily fail that, you just learn what you don't know. Is that the way that phrase goes? I'm very much in a positive mood over that sort of stuff today, so my apologies if that's a little bit too rosy, but I definitely am embracing the I didn't fail, I just learned how not to do something. But yes, thank you very much. Okay, so sadly we are about to hop off ourselves, but we are about to go over to Callow. If you've not been on Callow's stream before, Callow is a really chill streamer. When we raid into his channel, thank you for the follow, Kikweb. You can use the attack command, and by attacking, you create bugs on his screen, and you can use attack multiple times. Not spam, but every I think once in a while once you see your thing go off, you can attack again. The aim is to overpower his stream, and we own the stream. So don't forget the attack command once we go into that stream. It's a great deal of fun. Callow's a great streamer. And yeah, so we'll be back on Tuesday. We might actually be investigating some new mobile projects, because Junicus has got me now, my wheels turning on that one. Thank you, Junicus. So I will say goodnight, and I will see you all next time. Thank you very much. Where's the raid button? Did I remove my raid button? Okay. Callow, do this properly. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Twitch, I clicked the wrong button. Twitch won't let me raid. That's bad. Let's try it the command line way. Raid, Callow creation. You already have a raid in progress. I don't have a raid in progress. How I fail at streaming this evening. Okay, everyone. Good night. Thank you.
I'm so happy I have raiders. I'm so happy. Let's see if we can find the error. TVD gamer.